بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم
الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين.
And so Al-Ma'mun asked him, why didn't you stand when everyone else stood up? And so Ali ibn al-Ja'ad, he said, because I don't want you, the Khalifa of the Muslims, to fall into disobeying the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And now he's curious. How can I disobey the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam with this? And Ali ibn al-Ja'ad, he said, because of what I heard from Al-Mubarak ibn Fudala, who said that he heard from Hassan al-Basri that the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, he said, "Man ahabba an yatamaththala lahu rijalu qiyaman falyatabawwa maq'adahu min an-nar." That the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, he said, whoever from amongst you would love that men would stand up for him, then let him take his seat in the fire. And so Al-Ma'mun, he sat there for a moment thinking about what was just said. And so he told all of the salesmen to get out and Ali ibn al-Ja'ad to stay. He said, let no one today buy any gold except from Ali ibn al-Ja'ad. And as we can see from this narration, that even though it may have been dangerous for Ali ibn al-Ja'ad not to stand for the Khalifa when he walked into the room, but because of his piety and his fear of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and because of his placing the sunnah of the Messenger sallallahu alayhi wa sallam first, we find that not only did he not get in trouble with the Khalifa, but the Khalifa ordered for his money to be spent only with Ali ibn al-Ja'ad. And we find this in the Quran, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he says, وَمَنْ يَتَقِ اللَّهِ يَجْعَلْ لَهُ مَخْرَجًا وَيَرْزُقْهُ مِنْ حَيْثُ لَا يَحْتَسِبُ وَلَمْ يَحْتَسِبْ. Allah Azza wa Jalla says, and whoever fears Allah, then He will make a way out for him, and He will provide for him in a way that he did not believe. And so this hadith that I just mentioned, as some of you may know, Al-Hassan al-Basri is not from the Sahaba, so you may say, well, is this hadith authentic? We say actually, we find this hadith in the Sunan of Abi Dawood and from the Adab al-Mufrad by Imam al-Bukhari and other books with a connected chain of narration. The hadith is authentic. So this is Ali ibn al-Ja'ad, the Shaykh of Imam al-Bukhari, in this hadith. So Imam al-Bukhari, going back to the hadith, he says, حدثنا Ali ibn al-Ja'ad. Ali ibn al-Ja'ad told us. Now Ali ibn al-Ja'ad, he got this hadith from his Shaykh Shu'bah. And he's Shu'bah ibn al-Hajjaj al-Wasiti. Now, by show of hands, if you've ever heard of Shu'bah before today, raise your hand. Shu'bah ibn al-Hajjaj al-Wasiti, Abu Bustam al-Basri. Now, Shu'bah ibn al-Hajjaj al-Wasiti, rahimahullah ta'ala, was known by the scholars of hadith as Amir al-Mu'mineen fil hadith, the leaders of the believer, or the leader of the believers in the science of hadith. And this laqab, or this title, was only given to a few of the scholars of hadith. From them was Al-Imam al-Bukhari, from them was Abu Hatim al-Razi, and there were about 25 or 26 in the history of Islam that have been given this title. From our time today, back to the Sahaba, that this title was only given to around 25 or 26 individuals, and Shu'bah was one of them. And so this is a lofty title, and he's somebody, inshallah ta'ala, hopefully in the weeks coming, maybe the imams can get together and have a discussion with the community so we can talk about more in detail who was Shu'bah ibn al-Hajjaj al-Wasiti. Al-Muhim, so al-Bukhari rahimahullah, he says, we were told by Ali ibn al-Ja'ad, who said that I was informed by Shu'bah on the authority of Abu Jamrah. Now, Abu Jamrah, now these names are important. You might be looking at me like, why are you talking about these names? I thought we want to hear a hadith. So yes, these names are important. It's Abu Jamrah, whose name is Nasr ibn Imran al-Dubai. And he's from the tribe of Dubay'ah, which is one of the subdivisions of the tribe Abdul Qais, this is the hadith, is in reference to the tribe of Abdul Qais, and we're going to talk about them in just a moment, inshallah. So Abu Jamrah, who is from the tribe of Dubai, and they are a subdivision of the tribe of Abdul Qais, he said, كنت أقعد مع ابن عباس رضي الله تعالى عنهما. He said, I used to sit with Abdullah ibn Abbas radiallahu ta'ala anhuma. Now we all know who Abdullah ibn Abbas is, correct? We all know? Yes? No? Okay. He is the cousin of who? Of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. His father was who? Abbas. And that was the uncle of the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam. The Messenger alayhi salatu wasalam had many uncles, but only 4 of them actually reached to the time of al-Islam. Who can name the 4 uncles of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam that reached to the time of al-Islam? Abbas, Hamza, Abu Talib, and Abu Lahab. Abu Lahab. Abu Jahl was not from the uncles of the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam. It was Abu Lahab. So 2 of them accepted Islam, Al-Abbas and Hamza, and 2 of them died upon disbelief, which are Abu Lahab and Abu Talib. And so Abdullah ibn Abbas used to have Abu Jamrah sit with him, because, as he mentioned in another narration in Bukhari, كنت أترجم لابن عباس رضي الله تعالى عنهما. Said I used to translate for Ibn Abbas, because Abu Jamrah, he knew Farisiya, he knew the language of the Persians, and he used to translate for Abdullah ibn Abbas, because he would sit and give lessons, and Abu Jamrah would translate. And so Abu Jamrah, rahimahullah ta'ala, he said, وَكَانَ يُجْلِسُنِي عَلَى سَرِيرِهِ, and he used to have me sit in his seat. So Abdullah ibn Abbas would be giving lectures, and next to him would be Abu Jamrah. And Ibn Abbas would speak, and Abu Jamrah would translate for the people who couldn't understand. Because Ibn Abbas, as we know, was one of the scholars of Mecca, and when the people came for Hajj, they would all sit around the scholar of Mecca. But some of them didn't understand the Arabic language. And so Abu Jamrah would translate for Abdullah ibn Abbas radiallahu ta'ala anhuma. And so he said, Abu Jamrah said that Ibn Abbas said to me that إِنَّ وَفْدَ عَبْدُ الْقَيْسِ لَمَّا أَتَوْا النَّبِيِّ صَلَّى اللَّهُ عَلَيْهِ وَسَلَّمَ. He said the delegation of the tribe of Abdul Qais, when they came to the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Now, there's a reason why Abdullah ibn Abbas mentioned this hadith to Abu Jamrah, which was mentioned in another narration in Bukhari, which is that Abu Jamrah had asked Ibn Abbas a question. He said, I have a container that I use to make nabid. Is anyone familiar with nabid?
It's alcohol, isn't it?
Well, it's before the nabid. Right, it's a way of making juice. So you take a container and you put dates, or you put grapes, or some other type of fruit, and you put water in the container and you let it sit there. And the sweetness of the fruit mixes with the water. And if you get it fast enough, You drink it and it's only sweet and it's not alcoholic. We call this nabid. If you leave it longer and let it ferment, then it becomes alcoholic. Okay, so Abu Jamrah said, I have a container that I make nabid in. And sometimes I'll drink a lot of it and it'll seem as though that I have gotten drunk. It'll seem as though I've gotten drunk. So he's asking a question about this container that he makes his nabid in. So now Ibn Abbas, radiallahu ta'ala, starts to answer his question by mentioning a hadith. And this shows us that the mufti, the mufti who's answering the questions for the people, he should answer the questions of the people based upon the hadith of the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and should mention his evidences for why he's getting ready to say what he says as far as the rulings of being wajib or haram or mustahab or makruh. So Abu Jamrah asked Ibn Abbas about this question. So Ibn Abbas, he says, إن وفد عبد القيس لما أتوا النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم. Indeed, the delegation of Abdul Qais, when they came to the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam, the Messenger alayhi salatu wasalam said, Man al-qawm? Who are the people? Meaning, who are you? Introduce yourselves. So they said, Rabi'a. They said, Rabi'a. Now Rabi'a, the Abdul Qais is a tribe from Bahrain. You all know what Bahrain is at? You know, the Middle East, Bahrain. They were from Bahrain. And Abdul Qais is from, their lineage goes back to Abdul Qais ibn Afsa, ibn Du'mi, ibn Jadila, ibn Asad, ibn Rabi'a, ibn Nizar. Now, why is this important? It's important because their lineage, going back to Rabi'a ibn Nizar, they connect with the lineage of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam at Nizar. So they are the great-great-grandchildren of Nizar, just like the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam was from the great-great-great-grandchildren of Nizar. However, they are from the children of Rabi'a ibn Nizar, and the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam was from the children of Mudha ibn Nizar. So Mudha and Rabi'a were brothers. Mudha and Rabi'a were brothers. And the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam came from the lineage of Mudha ibn Nizar, and the tribe of Abdul Qais came from the lineage of Rabi'a ibn Nizar, who is Nizar ibn Ma'ad ibn Adnan. And Adnan is from the children of Ismail. So these individuals, they came to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and they said, who are you? Introduce yourselves. They said, we are Rabi'a. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, Marhaban bil qawm, ghayru khazaya wa la nadam. He said, welcome people without any disgrace or any regret. Meaning you arrived here without any disgrace, you didn't mean any harm, nor will you have any regret. Meaning you won't regret your coming here from where you come from. So they said, Ya Rasulullah. They said, Ya Rasulullah, which shows that they were believers already. They were believers already when they arrived. They said, Ya Rasulullah, لا نستطيع أن نأتيك إلا في الشهر الحرام بيننا وبينك كفار مضى. He said, or they said, O Messenger of Allah, we only have the ability to meet you during the sacred months, because between us and you are the disbelievers of Mudha. Meaning that they were at war with Mudha, and so they weren't able to pass through to meet the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, except in the sacred months, because in the sacred months there was no fighting. In the sacred months there's no fighting. Who can tell me what are the sacred months? There are 4 of them. Who can tell me what they are? Huh?
No, Ramadan is one.
No, Ramadan is not one. Rajab is one. April? No. Muharram is number 2. No, not Safar. Dhul Hijjah, and Dhul Qi'dah. The Messenger sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, he said in a hadith that you can find in the Sahih of Imam al-Bukhari on the authority of Abu Bakr, not Abu Bakr, Abu Bakr. There's a different Sahabi. There's one Sahabi named Abu Bakr, a Siddiq. There's another Sahabi, his name is Abu Bakr. Right? So on the authority of Abu Bakr, he said that the Messenger sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said, إن الزمان قد استدار كهيئته كيوم خلق الله السماوات والأرض السنة 12 شهرا منها 4 حرم ثلاث المتواليات ذو القعدة ذو الحجة المحرم ورجب مضر الذي بين جمادى وشعبان. So he says sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, indeed the time has come back around like the day that Allah has created the heavens and the earth. The year is 12 months. From those 12 months are 4 that are sacred. 3 of them are all together. They are Dhul Qi'dah, Dhul Hijjah, and Al-Muharram. And the 4th is the Rajab of Mudar that takes place between Jumada and Sha'ban. And so during these months are sacred, even for us, because the sins that are performed during these sacred months are multiplied. They have more weight. They are greater in sin during these sacred months. So we have to pay attention to these months. And so they said, O Messenger of Allah, we only have the ability to come to you during the sacred months. Between us and you are the kuffar, the disbelievers of Mudar. فَمُرْنَا بِأَمْرٍ فَصْلٍ فَمُرْنَا بِأَمْرٍ فَصْلٍ نخبر به من وراءنا وندخل به الجنة. He said, so command us with a specific command. Command us with a specific command that we can inform our people about it. And because of it, we will enter into Jannah. ثم سألوه عن الأشربة. Then they asked him questions about their drinks. And so we see that the questioner, and from this we understand that when someone comes and has an opportunity to meet with the scholars, they should start with the questions that are most important. They should start with their questions that are most important. Because they started off with, tell us something that will enter us into Jannah, that we can go back to our people, and we will enter into Jannah, and they will enter into Jannah. And then secondly, they asked about their drinks. And so the Prophet ﷺ, he said, in answering their question, أَمُرُكُمْ بِأَرْبَعٍ وَأَنْهَاكُمْ عَنْ أَرْبَعٍ. I command you with 4 things, and I prohibit you from 4 things. And this is one of the ways of the teaching of the Prophet ﷺ, by mentioning the numbers, because it helps for people to memorize. Because if I say, memorize this, and I just start giving you a list, then you may forget some things. But if I tell you, I'm going to give you a list of 7 things to memorize, and then I number them, it becomes easier upon you to memorize. So the Prophet ﷺ, he said, أَمُرُكُمْ بِأَرْبَعٍ وَأَنْهَاكُمْ عَنْ أَرْبَعٍ. I command you with 4 things, and I prohibit you from 4 things. He says, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, أَمُرُكُمْ بِالْإِيمَانِ بِاللَّهِ وَحْدَهُ. I command you to have faith in Allah alone. I command you to have faith in Allah alone. So this shows us, remember, what did they ask about? Tell us something that we can tell our people that will cause us to enter into Jannah. So the Prophet ﷺ answered by saying, أَمُرُكُمْ بِالْإِيمَانِ بِاللَّهِ وَحْدَهُ. I command you to have faith in Allah alone. So this shows us that entering into Jannah requires faith in Allah alone. To enter into Jannah, an individual has to have faith in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala alone. Then the Messenger ﷺ, being the excellent teacher that he was, he said to them, أَتَدْرُونَ مَا الْإِيمَانُ بِاللَّهِ وَحْدَهُ. He said, do you all know what is faith in Allah alone? He didn't just say, take this and go. He asked them, Or he told them, take this. And do you know what this means? Because if you don't know, I'm going to explain it to you. So that when you go back to your people, you can have your basis along with its explanation and its understanding. So he said to them, do you know what is faith in Allah alone? They said, Allahu wa Rasuluhu a'lam. They said, Allah and His Messenger know best. And this shows us that when an individual doesn't know something, then they should say, I don't know. And there is no shame in an individual saying, I don't know. There's no shame if you don't know something. If you don't know something, someone will teach you until you know. If you keep saying, I know, someone will ask you until you say, I don't know. So there's no shame in saying, I don't know. Imam Malik rahimahullah said, I don't know. And they said, aren't you ashamed that you're the Imam of Medina and you're saying, I don't know? He said, rahimahullah, well, the angels, they weren't ashamed when Allah asked them, and then they said, I don't know. And so to say, I don't know shows the understanding of an individual. It doesn't show his ignorance. It shows his level of understanding. Because the ignorant people, they're the ones who always have an answer. But the scholars, they're the ones who know their limits. And when they know something, they speak. And when they don't know something, they say, I don't know. So these individuals, they said, Allahu wa Rasuluhu a'lam. Allah and His Messenger know best. The Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, he said, and explaining what is Iman, he said, Shahadatu an la ilaha illallah, wa anna Muhammadan Rasulullah, wa iqamu as-salah, wa ita'u az-zakah, وصوم رمضان وأن تعطوا الخمس من المغنم. He said that the faith in Allah alone is the testimony that there is no deity worthy of worship besides Allah, and that Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam is the messenger of Allah, and to establish the salah, and to pay the zakat, and to fast in Ramadan, and to give a fifth of the war booty. Now, I want to just stop for just a moment so we can take a look at how the Prophet ﷺ has explained al-Iman. First, we see that in his explanation, we find that Iman is comprised of speech, belief, and action. We say, how is that? Because he mentioned that the testimony that there's no deity worthy of worship besides Allah serves as the foundation. Now, you cannot testify to something unless you say it, unless you speak. Because if you don't speak, then you haven't testified. You also can't testify to something that you don't believe. Because if you testify to something that you don't believe, we call this shahadat az-zur. We call this a false testimony. So you have to only testify to that which you believe. And so we see that the testimony that there is no deity worthy of worship besides Allah makes up speech and belief. And then he mentioned the salah, which is action. And so we find that al-Iman, based upon this definition of the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam, is comprised of belief, statements, and action. And we cannot have one without the other. It is not possible to have speech and action with no belief. That's like the hypocrites. It's not possible to have speech and belief but no action. How can you say that you believe in Allah? How can you say that you believe in Allah and there's no action behind this? Because if you believe in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and if you believe that one day you're going to stand in front of Allah azza wa jal, that motivates you to make Salat al-Fajr on time. It will motivate you to not lie. It'll motivate you to be good and respectable and honorable to your parents. It's going to motivate you to stay away from haram, to not look at haram on your phones, on your tablets, It's going to motivate you not to drink the haram, not to smell the haram, not to taste the haram, not to touch the haram. Why? Because you believe in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and Allah alone. And so here from this, we see that the Iman is directly linked to our speech belief and our actions. So the more we profess our belief, and the stronger our sincerity is in our belief, and the more actions that we put forward, that's going to cause our Iman to go up. It will make our Iman rise. But the less we do, the weaker we are in our sincerity and belief, the less we speak and mention Allah's name off of our tongues, then our Iman decreases. And so we find that the Messenger ﷺ said, أَتَدْرُونَ مَا الْإِيمَانُ بِاللَّهِ وَحْدَهُ? Do you know what faith in Allah is alone? They said, Allah and His Messenger know best. He said, the testimony that there is no deity worthy of worship besides Allah, and that Muhammad is the Messenger of Allah. And so we find that our testimony of our belief in the Messenger ﷺ is directly linked to our Iman. Meaning, when we take the Prophet ﷺ as our example, that has a direct link to our Iman. When we follow him in how we pray and how we worship in general, we follow him in how we eat and drink and how we dress. Ladies, how we dress. We follow the Prophet's guidance in how we dress. Brothers, I'm not going to just talk about the ladies and not talk about the brothers. Brothers, there is a dress code that was given to us by the Messenger ﷺ. How are we going to send our women in the street saying, you better go outside looking like a Muslim, and then we go outside looking like the kuffar? We have to also practice what we preach. And so, our testimony that Muhammad ﷺ is the Messenger of Allah has a direct link to our Iman and the establishment of the Salah. 5 daily prayers: Fajr, Dhuhr, Asr, Maghrib, and Isha at their stated times. Now just because we don't have school on Saturdays doesn't mean that we can oversleep Fajr. Right? Just because it's the weekend doesn't mean that we cannot pray Asr because we're playing soccer. We can't play Call of Duty, or what's the Fortnite? Is that what the young kids are doing nowadays? The Fortnite. And when the Salah comes in and goes out and we haven't made the Salah, because this is your Iman. Your Salah is your Iman. I'm going to say that again. Your Salah is your Iman, as the Prophet said, alayhi salatu wasalam. Do you know what Iman is? Do you know what faith in Allah is? The testimony of faith, the establishment of the Salah, to pay the zakat. Brothers, with money, we can't be stingy. Allah has obligated upon us the zakat. And to fast the month of Ramadan, which is coming up. How many months are we away from Ramadan? 2 months. Allahumma balighna Ramadan. So the month of Ramadan is coming. Now a person may ask, why didn't the Prophet ﷺ mention Al-Hajj in his answer? The answer for that is the delegation of Abdul Qais, they arrived in Al-Madinah to speak to the Prophet ﷺ 2 times. They came this time and another time afterwards. This time, Hajj had not been revealed yet. And the Prophet ﷺ, he mentioned the last thing was to give 1/5 of the war booty. The reason why he mentioned that is because, as we said, they were at war with the Kuffar Mudar. And so the 1/5 of the war booty goes to Allah and His Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam into other specified areas. Then the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he mentioned, or answering the question about the drinks. He mentioned the answer about their drinks. Because he said, "Amurukum bi arba'," which that we talked about. He said, "Wa anhaakum an arba'," and I prohibit you from 4 things. He said, I prohibit you from al-hantam, wal-dubba, wal-muzaffat, wal-naqir. Now these items, we're running out of time. I don't have time to explain all of them, what they are. But in general, they're containers. They're containers that the people used to drink out of. One is a carved out pumpkin. One is carved out date palm. They take the base of the date palm tree, they carve it out, and there were different items that they used to make their drinks in. Now these containers specifically were prohibited by the Messenger ﷺ because of how quickly the drinks will become fermented and become alcoholic drinks. So a person would sit the drink, the water and the dates inside of this particular container, and it would become alcoholic very, very quickly. And someone may come by and drink from it and not notice that it was alcoholic. Now, some of the ulama have said that this prohibition has been abrogated. Some of the ulama have said that no, there's been no abrogation. These containers are still prohibited. I'm not going to get in this discussion, inshallah. We'll leave this question to the imams of the masjid, and they can answer whether or not it's permissible to drink out of a dubbat, which is a carved out pumpkin. But just question, do you guys drink out of these types of containers? Like back home, do you have like containers made out of dried pumpkin containers or dried tree containers? Oh, okay. So what do you say?
Yeah, but we don't drink the asir itself. We drink from it.
The container, you drink out of the pumpkin container?
Yes.
Right. This is the container that we're talking about. It's called a dubba. What they do is they take the pumpkin and they cut it open and they dry it. It becomes dried out pumpkin, and it's a container now. And then they make their drink in it, and then they drink from it. This was when Salatu Wasalam prohibited this. Then he said to them, احفظوهن وأخبروا بهن من وراءكم. He said, memorize this and go back to your people and inform them of it. And so this shows us that when we have someone who comes and meets with the people of knowledge, someone who has knowledge of the Quran and the Sunnah, and they learn some knowledge, then it is their obligation to go back to their people and inform the people of the knowledge that they have learned about Allah and His Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And so the point here of this hadith, why we wanted to mention this hadith, is the fact that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he asked the delegation of Abdul Qais, do you know what is faith in Allah alone? And he answered that by saying, it is the testimony that there is no deity worthy of worship besides Allah, and that Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam is the messenger of Allah, and to establish the salah, to pay the zakat, to fast the month of Ramadan, and to give a fifth of the war booty. And so here we find that the Prophet ﷺ has answered this question for us. What is faith in Allah alone? And now we find the answer of the Messenger ﷺ. So just like he told the delegation of Abdul Qais to memorize this and to inform the people, that I'm saying to you to memorize this and go back and inform the people who work here to hear this and to learn this, so that they, along with all of us, can worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to the best of our abilities. I pray that Allah Azza wa Jal helps us. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala guide us. Ask Allah Azza wa Jal to allow us to see Ramadan. May Allah accept from us our good deeds and our righteous actions. May He overlook our faults and forgive us of our mistakes.
Jazakallah khairan, Shaykh. Barakallahu feek. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reward you Jannat al-Firdaus. Thank you very much. It's a wonderful lecture. Jazakallah khairan. Inshallah, before we go to the second part of this first lecture, so if there was any questions towards the sisters or brothers here, I'm going to ask the Young and Strong team to go around, inshallah, write the questions, inshallah, and bring them here. Inshallah. So when I was starting, I left out, if you follow up, I left out something I just figured out during the lecture. 1 minute welcome from the Imam. We have an interruption of double parking. Please, if you double park black Venza taxi and Toyota Camry taxi 99C, go move it. Black Venza taxi, Toyota Camry taxi 99C, please go move it. The two cars. So I left out this the welcome, 1 minute welcome from the Imam, inshallah, and we have a Sheikh here, Sheikh Tafsir as well. Sheikh, he is the he is our Sheikh. He has the credit of establishing the first halaqa of this community in the United States. Alhamdulillah, he is here. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala preserve him and bless him, inshallah. So, Sheikh, I'm going to give you the mic, the Imam, inshallah, and give it to Sheikh here, while we're going to have the questions ready.
Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. Thumma salatu wassalamu ala Rasulullah. Anyway, you have to check the mic because they open the mic. But I believe that right after the salat, we welcome our brother, our Sheikh, before even the lecture started, so we were not expecting this to be repeated. But alhamdulillah, nobody is guest in the house of Allah. But now we say welcome, welcome again. You're welcome, you're not stranger in Islam. Maybe that this may be your first time coming to this masjid. We say we welcome you, and inshallah we hope to see you again in the future anytime you come around, inshallah. So welcome, we know many questions, so we coming very soon from the young boys and girls and even from the elders based on what we hear. We just hear few, like when you put the needle in the water. If you go to the ocean, you put your needle and you take it out. The little thing that can be on the needle, that's the example of what we heard. Inshallah, in every generation Allah Ta'ala can bless in the Ummah of Islam, people who understand Islam and spread Islam. Every generation, Allah is responsible for that. So in our generation, Allah choose people to give all the meaning and understanding of Islam. So if you are lucky to come across any of them, you should open your mind. As I said earlier, learning about Islam, you learn about Islam every day. As soon you come across someone who understands Islam more than you, open your heart, your ears, your mind, so you can get something. From this lecture, if you open your mind, clear mind and ears, you will be benefited. You may not understand all, but inshallah from here, you have 1 or 2 or 3 things that you can remember forever. That is how important. So let us open our mind. When he's answering the questions, please do not only listen to the languages used, maybe the English or the Arabic, but listen to the answers. Remember, those answers are there for you to use them in your life, for you to practice them. So let us listen carefully the answers and remember them, because all the answers based on what we saw, all the answers will be based on the Quran and the Sunnah, meaning on the authentic meaning and teaching of Islam. So we give the mic back to our elder to say 1 or 2 words before we go to the question. Inshallah, Haraya Ustaz, wa alaikum
كلمة الذي سأقولها بالعربية بما أن شيخنا جبل خريج فقط أمتثل بأن دعوتنا الخالصة بأن يجعل الله هذا في ميزان حسناته وجمعنا الله جميعا في فرائض جنته وجعلنا الله من الذين يستمعون القول فيتبعون أحسنه. والذي يعلق على الدرس شيخنا عبد الله، وبعد ذلك إذا كان لنا كلمة إن شاء الله سنتكلم بها. والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله.
Jazakallah khair, Sheikh, very concise. Wa ahsanallah ilayk, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will Jannah. Inshallah. Do we have questions? Inshallah. CFC. Not raising their hands? No. Somebody's writing, right? So, okay, and so you're raising hand, right? Right, inshallah. So, just to be clear, inshallah, we're giving priority to the teenagers, inshallah. The adults, alhamdulillah, jazakumullah khairan, we're going to come last, inshallah. Somebody raise his hand here? Mustafa, fadal. Okay, the question is that why did Allah Azza wa Jalla choose Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam for his prophethood?
Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He says, Allahu a'lamu haythu yaj'alu risalata. Allah says, Allah knows best as to where He places His messengership. And so Allah Azza wa Jalla, out of all of the creation, He saw fit that Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam was the best to carry this last and final message. So the answer to your question is that Allah Azza wa Jal is the one who decides who gets the message and who does it. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala chose Prophet Muhammad alayhi salatu wasalam for this mission.
So Jazakallah khairan. Our Imam says to translate this into Fulani. Do we know that?
Mustafa.
Mustafa?
No what he captured, understand.
Yeah, Mustafa, do you understand what the Sheikh said? Good? Okay, khair.
Okay,
Okay, now we take
Let's give priority to the
to the
ladies.
sisters. Sheikh, I'm going to give you one to review. So it says here, number one. So, or nose person haram. Nose person.
Nose piercing.
Nose. No, nose. Yeah, the ring that you put in. Sheikh will make it clean, inshallah.
Can
you repeat the question on the mic?
Maybe make it clean.
Okay, the question is in reference to nose piercings. Nose piercings. First of all, Allah, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he mentioned in general that we're not allowed to desecrate our bodies or give harm to our bodies. And he said, alayhi salatu wasalam, la darara wa la dirar. There is no harming others, and there is no harming yourself. However, we find that during the time of the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam, women used to wear earrings, because we find that in the hadith of the Messenger alayhi salatu wasalam, that he and Bilal were, after the Eid, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam had gone to the women and ordered the women to give sadaqah. And the narrator says that the women started to take off their necklaces and their earrings. Their necklaces and their earrings. And so we know that in order to wear an earring, there has to be a thaq, which is, it has to be a piercing in the ear. That the ladies, they get their ears pierced and they put the ring through the ear. And so the Prophet ﷺ did not prohibit them from wearing this. Now, there are some cultures that also the ladies, they wear the nose rings. There's some cultures that the nose ring is just like the earring. However, the earring is a type of beautification that gets covered when the lady is wearing her khimar. When she's wearing her khimar, the earring is covered. The difference with the earring and the nose ring is that if she's wearing the nose ring, it's exposed if she's not wearing a face veil. It's exposed if she's not wearing a face veil. And this is the type of beautification that will draw attention to her that is not permissible. And so if the lady is going to wear the nose ring, which I believe to be permissible, because it is a type of beautification that just like the earring, then if she comes outside, then she has to have that covered. She has to have it covered because it is a type of beautification that will draw attention to her face. And if it's not covered, then it will be exposing her beauty, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows best.
Time limit that you speak to someone before marriage?
Is there what?
Time limit.
That you speak to someone before marriage? I think I'm understanding from this question that is there a specific amount of time that a boy and a girl correspond with one another before they get married? Is that
No.
What are the limits? Is there? Okay. First of all, before you get married, that girl or that boy is not a mahram until there is a marriage contract. Then there is no interaction between that boy and that girl except by what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has revealed. Meaning they're not allowed to be on the phone with one another by themselves. Right? They cannot text each other. Snapchat. They can't snap each other, whatever you call that.
Facebook, Instagram.
You cannot be, DMing, right? You can't DM one another. Because this is a type of private conversation where the shaitan is the thalith. The shaitan is the third. And so, if there's going to be communication between the boy and the girl, then there has to be a mahram. The girl has to have her father, her uncle, her brother, the men of her family that have ghira over her. There's no such thing as let me holler at you, girl, so I can, so we can get to know each other. There's no such thing as this. Hey, girl, let me get your number so we can WhatsApp with one another. They said, no, there's none of this. And ladies, young ladies, let me tell you something. Please listen to this. If any young man is serious about his religion, and he's serious about you, and if he would go and speak to your father. Alhamdulillah, with today's day and age, no one is unfindable. We can find anyone, alhamdulillah. And so if a boy is interested in you, and he's serious about his religion, and he's serious about you, then he'll talk to your father first. And young men, same thing. If you're serious, because I'm a father, and I have daughters. And if a young man knocks on my door and says, I want to talk to you, he looks me in the eye and says, I want to marry your daughter. I have respect for that. What I don't have respect for is after 1 month or 2 months, I find out that my daughter has been chit-chatting WhatsApp or text messages with a young man, and then he wants to come to me and say, oh, I'm in love. You say, la, you should have did it right the first time. And so, I would advise the young people who want to get married to do things properly, correctly. You have your whole lives to be together and to talk, we call it pillow talk. You get married, you can pillow talk all you want to. And mama and baba aren't going to say nothing. But you have to keep within the boundaries of what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has revealed. And so, a couple wanting to get married, they should spend time getting to know one another through permissible means, as much as time as they need in order to make a sound decision on whether or not they want to get married, inshallah ta'ala.
Now, Sheikh, it's a follow-up on this. So, how can we clear the misconception of the people that says, I didn't know this person, how can I get married to this person?
And they said, oh, Messenger of Allah, but he's blind. He's blind, he can't see us. He doesn't know what we look like, he can't see. The Prophet ﷺ said, but you're not. You're not. And so this all shows us that it is not permissible for men and women, girls or boys, to have these types of interactions between one another, what we call now today, what is known as boyfriend and girlfriend, where you walk your girlfriend to class, you carry her books, or y'all hold hands, or you go to the movies, or. All of that is not permissible, because it starts off with a smile. You just smile, and then that smile leads to a wink, and that wink leads to a meeting. And that meeting leads to what is displeasing to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And so it doesn't stop, or the shaitan does not stop until he puts you in a position where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is angry with you. Which is why Allah azza wa jalla said, وَلَا تَقْرَبُوا الزِّنَا. Allah did not say, وَلَا تَزْنُوا. He didn't say, don't commit zina. He said, don't come close to a zina. Don't even come close to it. Don't do anything that's going to put you in range of it. Whether it's talking or smiling, and because sometimes girls, they have this giggle that they do. And the boys find that attractive. And the girls do that on purpose. Right? They do that on purpose in order to bring about attention. All of this is not permissible.
Why don't you recommend the story of Barisa?
So now I have an analogy. My wife, Jazakallahu Khairah, that she uses with my daughters. That she always says, as my daughters are growing up, she used to say to them that if you found a piece of candy that was opened, right, on the ground, the wrapper was off of it, it was used, would you want it? Say, no. Who would want a used piece of candy? Say, yeah, but it's sweet. It's on the ground, but it's still sweet. You can still eat it. Who's going to eat that? No one. We want to buy a piece of candy, we want the new one. The one that's not touched. It's still inside of the wrapper. We know that no one has touched it. It's clean. Right now, if we went to the store, if someone just broke off the wrapper just a little bit, it was the one on top. If we wanted, like, for example, a Snicker bar, and we saw that it was just ripped open just a little bit, we're going to say, oh, let me get the other one. Because we don't want that one. We want the one that's fresh and new, that hasn't been touched. And so likewise, ladies, you have to view yourself like this. Have respect for yourself. Because any man that's worth having is not going to want to have a wife who is known in the community that she's been passed around from one boyfriend to the next. And young men, and again, I'm not just going to talk to the ladies and act like it's the ladies who only fall into this. Young men, no respectable woman is going to want to be with a young man who's known throughout the community to jump from one girl to the next. No one's going to want that. No respectable. Now, if you want to marry someone who's unrespectable, a lady who doesn't have any manners or morals, then that's a different conversation.
Jazakallah khairan ya Sheikh wa barakallahu feek. The next question here, Sheikh, is can you be friends with non-Muslims or atheists?
Question, can you be friends with non-Muslims or atheists? I would ask a rhetorical question, which is, why would someone want to be friends with a non-Muslim or an atheist? Now, what I mean by when we say friends, okay, sometimes today we use the term friend loosely. Sometimes somebody that we know, or that we may see them on the street, sometimes we say, oh, this is my friend. So when I'm saying friend, I'm referring to the term as someone who is my close friend, who I share secrets with, intimate details of my life, who I spend time with. They come over to my house, I go over to their house, I eat their food, they eat my food. We spend much time together. That's a friend. I'm going to say, why would someone want to give their life to someone who disbelieves in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? The Messenger sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, he said, الرجل على دين خليله فلينظر أحدكم إلى من يخالف. He said, the man is on the religion of his closest friend. So let each one of you look to who he takes as his close companion. And because you're going to be affected, whether you realize it or not, you're going to be affected by their way. Their talking, their belief, their customs, their culture. You're going to be affected. And the things they do, you're going to be affected by it. They're listening to music. They're eating a pork. The way that they dress. The fact that they're going to have girlfriends and boyfriends. All of that is going to have an effect on you. Because your non-Muslim friends, young men, what's going to happen is, you have a friend who's non-Muslim, and he has other non-Muslim friends. So y'all go hang out. Alright? And say, for example, you're out and you're walking down the street, and there's a young lady, she says, "Ooh, look at that, look at Mustafa." And they say, "Ooh, she likes you, Mustafa." And he says, No, I'm trying to fear Allah. They're going to say, "Oh, what you don't like girls, you like guys? Huh?" Right? That's what they're going to say to you. And now they're going to try to pressure you. They're going to pressure you. So now you have to prove your manhood. And the only way that you can do that is by disobeying Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And so it is not good, nor is it recommended, nor is it preferred, nor is it permissible at specified times that a person should take as their close companion the non-Muslim, especially the atheist. Especially the atheist, because at least the Christian believes that in Allah exists. Whereas with the atheists, they have no belief in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala whatsoever, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows best.
Jazakallah khair, Sheikh. Barakallah feek. There's a lot of questions here, Sheikh. What is your advice in those who have suicidal thoughts? What? Suicidal thoughts.
Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He says in the Quran, وَلَا تُلْقُوا بِأَيْدِيكُمْ إِلَى التَّهْلُكَةِ وَأَحْسِنُوا. Allah says, do not send yourselves to destruction by your own hands. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He says in the Quran, وَلَا تَقْتُلُوا أَنفُسَكُمْ, and do not kill yourselves. And so here, from these ayat, we find that it is not permissible for an individual to commit suicide. It is not permissible for a person to commit suicide. It is not permissible for a person to commit suicide. The Sahaba, they were in battle, and there was a man from amongst them who was showing lots of courage. He was fighting the kuffar, and so they started to discuss his issue, and they were saying that he's definitely from the people of Jannah. And so the Prophet ﷺ, he heard their discussion, and he said, he is from the people of the fire. He said, he is from the people of the fire. So they were shocked. How could this person be from the people of the fire? So they were watching on the battlefield, and this individual was struck. And so he was struck, and he was in pain. And so he couldn't take it anymore. So he took his sword, and put it on the ground, and he threw himself onto his sword, and he killed himself. And so we see that the Prophet ﷺ, that he is from the people of the fire. And so it shows us that even when we're in situations where we find it difficult, we're finding difficulties, it's not permissible for us to throw ourselves to destruction. My advice for the one who's having suicidal thoughts is to find and seek out the Muslim therapist, the Muslim who is a professional at dealing with mental health issues, and to make an appointment. Maybe if you don't know who that person is, you can go to the imam, one of the imams here. They can advise you on who to have a discussion with, because this is a very serious issue. And parents, please understand that suicide is a very serious issue. And if one of your children, if you start to see maybe they're writing in their books, or if you overhear the issues of suicide, please take this seriously. Please do not get angry and beat them, or please take it seriously because they need help. They need assistance. And this is a grave issue. And we've had children as young as middle school who have committed suicide for different reasons. Muslims in middle school who committed suicide for one reason or the next. And so we need to please let's take this situation seriously. I know that sometimes when you say, oh, my child is not going to go to a therapist, ooh, that's not my child, this is like a taboo issue. You say, please, if you hear your child talking about this, please let's take this situation seriously. Let's give them the help that they need through da'wah, through the professionals, through Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
Jazakallah khair, Barakallahu fik, Shaykh. The next one here says, how can you cure music addiction? Any tips?
First of all, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He says in the Quran, وَاسْتَفْسِزْ مَنْ اسْتَطَعْتَ بِصَوْتِكَ, and incite, and this is Allah speaking to the shaitan, incite whoever you can from amongst them, بِصَوْتِكَ, with your voice. And the ulama of tafsir from the Sahaba and the Tabi'een, they said that بِصَوْتِكَ, with your voice, means music. They said, so music is the voice of the shaitan. And so, the very first thing in our steps in curing the addiction to listening to music is to first understand what it is that we're listening to. We're listening to the voice of the shaitan. Now I'm going to tell you about something that maybe some of the elders may not know about. It's something called backmasking. Are you familiar with backmasking? Backmasking was something that was started by the Beatles. Maybe even before that, but the first that I know of is a European group called the Beatles. And they used to make music. Okay, and on their records, they would record different songs backwards. And so when you listen to the record and play it backwards, there's messages inside of the song that you can't hear when you're listening to it, but subconsciously your mind can hear whatever the message is when you play it backwards. You can only hear it consciously if you have special software that plays it in the backwards direction. And they're still doing it to this day. Some of the famous singers like Beyonce and some of the rappers like Eminem, they're still doing this to this day. So when you're listening to this music, you don't know the messages, the da'wah that they're giving you subconsciously. And you don't know, sometimes you may even think the way that you feel is because you feel this way. But in reality, the music that you were listening to was the one that told you to think like this, was the one that told you to feel like this. And so, this music is the voice of the shaitan. And so, the first step into curing this disease, this addiction, is to understand what it is that you're really listening to. The second step is to start listening to the Quran as much as possible. Now, many of us have different reciters that we have more of a likening to. Some of us, we like to listen to Minshawi. Some of us like to listen to Husari. Some of us like to listen to Shaykh Abdul Rashid al-Sufi. Some of us like to listen to Sudais or Shuraim, or whatever reciter that you have a likening to, start listening to that. Because it's not possible to listen to music and the Quran at the same time. And you should even play the Quran while you sleep. Parents, if you don't have a radio in your home, where you can, with speakers, that you can play the Quran while your children sleep, then I advise that you invest some money into getting some type of radio equipment in your house, that at nighttime, when it's time for your children to go to sleep, you turn the Quran on. And you get one of those CDs that can play the whole Quran and have the Quran playing. What this does is, as the children go to sleep and they're hearing the Quran, they're listening to it all night. And you are now affecting their subconscious and allowing for the Quran on a nightly basis to enter into their minds, so they can have an affinity towards the speech of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And parents, please do not hesitate to look and see what your children are doing on their phones. Wait a minute, let me rephrase that. What they're doing on your phones. What they're doing on your phone. Right, because we talked about this last night in the Masjid al-Jannah. You and your wealth belong to your father. Right, so that phone belongs to your parents. But I paid my own money for it. It belongs to your father. So, take the phone every now and then, look at it, see what they're listening to on YouTube. My children don't even have the YouTube app. I paid the extra money so that my children can have an iPhone, just so that I can limit what they have access to on their phone. No Safari, no internet browser, no YouTube, no Twitter, no Facebook, no Instagram, no this, no that, no this. They go, you have a phone, you can text me, you can call. That's it. Because we have to be diligent. We have to protect. Our children live in America. Our children, they live in the United States. And we have to make sure that we're doing all of our best to preserve them. And so now, for those of us, some of that question could come from the adults. Some of the adults are affected by music. Again, the more that you listen to the Quran, and the higher your faith goes in Allah, the more you can pull yourself away from that which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is displeased with. And as I said, know for certainty, it starts with the music, but it doesn't end there. It starts with the music, but it doesn't end there. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala help us in that.
Is it okay to get married to a non-Muslim? If so, is it okay to have a baby that is non-Muslim, raised as a non-Muslim?
There are too many Muslims that are single for us to even be considering, is it permissible or not permissible to marry a non-Muslim? Young men, there are too many ladies right now, too many young girls in this masjid right now as we sit. I'm not going to ask you to do it, but I'm going to say, if I were to ask for every single young lady to raise their hand, we're going to see lots of hands go up. And so there's too many young ladies that are Muslim, raised as Muslims, have good Muslim parents, good Muslim upbringing, raised to pray the 5 salawat, raised to be obedient to their husband, raised to be mutahajjiba. There's too many Muslim ladies that are good Muslims for us to even consider a non-Muslim girl who is not obedient to Allah, who makes shirk with Allah Azza wa Jalla, who's going to teach your children shirk with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, who doesn't dress modestly, who doesn't abide by the ahkam of tahara. And one thing after the next is too many of our Muslim young ladies who are here, and if every man in the Muslim man in the world was to marry 4 Muslim ladies, there was still going to be women left over. So how are we going to now look to the non-Muslims to say, I want to get married? We say, la, we have to take care of our young Muslim ladies. We have to take care of them, marry them properly, and give them their rights, and not leave them to be left in the streets to themselves. And so we should not be considering marrying a Christian or Jew or atheist or Buddhist. We should not be considering that at all. Because as I said, there's too many opportunities. And alhamdulillah, and please forgive me, I hope the elders don't get mad at me for saying this. But I'm going to say this because the young people need to hear this. Okay? Inshallah. Our young women are beautiful. Okay? Our young women are beautiful. So it's not like, oh, I want to marry a pretty girl, so I need to marry a non-Muslim. You say, nah, our women are beautiful. I know my wife tells me, so I don't want you to think that. Our women, our young ladies are beautiful. They have beautiful characteristics and beautiful character. So there's no need to go to the non-Muslims for anything. Alhamdulillah.
Jazakallah khair, Sheikh. The next question here says, I guess he's a man, a boy. He says he has friends that scams. What does Allah say about scamming banks, scamming people, scamming with people's information?
In reference to scamming people, scamming banks, or scamming in general, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَلَا تَأْكُلُوا أَمْوَالَكُمْ بَيْنَكُمْ بِالْبَاطِلِ, and do not devour the wealth between you in falsehood. The Messenger sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, he said, مَنْ غَشَّ فَلَيْسَ مِنَّا, whoever cheats, then he is not from us. And so we find that in this ayah, this hadith, along with many other evidences, it is not permissible to scam. Even if you're scamming the non-Muslim, it is not permissible to scam. It is not permissible to cheat. It is not permissible to run game, to go into the store and to switch tags, or to knowingly bring a coupon that's expired and try to utilize it in a way so you can get the coupon that's expired. It's not permissible to scam, to cheat, or to steal. That is not permissible. It is haram, haram, haram. That wealth that you have devoured based upon obtaining the wealth in haram is haram. So if you purchase food for your family with wealth that you have obtained by haram means, then that food is haram. You're feeding your family with haram. You are eating the haram, or you're drinking the haram, or you're paying your bills with haram. That is haram. Even if the people you're scamming are non-Muslims, it is not permissible for us as Muslims who believe in Allah in the last day to scam and to cheat. As the Prophet said, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, "Man ghasha falaysa minna," whoever cheats, he is not from us.
Jazakallah khair, Sheikh. Barakallahu feek. The next one here says, now, is being fat haram? Fat.
Is being fat haram?
Yes. So if you die from diabetes, obesity, is it your fault?
First, there's several questions here. In this, the first is it permissible to be fat? There are rules. It's impossible to give a generalized ruling to say it's haram to be fat or to say it's halal to be fat. Because people in their weight, they are affected by different things. There are people who have, for example, there are ladies who I know, they have thyroid disease. All right, they have thyroid disease. And the thyroid disease affects their metabolism. And it doesn't allow for them to lose weight. And so a lady or a man who has this thyroid condition may be overweight, not because he overeats, he only eats salad, right, and fruit, that's it. He doesn't eat anything else, no sweets, no nothing, but he's still overweight. Why? Because he has a condition. So it's impossible to say that this person has done haram. But then you have someone who's overweight because all he does is eat sweets. He goes to McDonald's and Wendy's and White Castle, and he eats and eats and eats and eats. And he has no regard, he just eats. So I can't say that that person is overweight and it's halal. And so the real question is in reference to how we eat. The question is in reference to how we eat. And what we eat has been determined by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And that we should be eating the foods that is good for us. We should be eating the foods that is good for us. Who here has read Surah Al-Kahf? Huh? Has anybody here ever read Surah Al-Kahf? Surah number 18. Yes. In Surah Al-Kahf, it talks about the story of the boys of the cave, right? When they woke up, what did they say to each other?
Get the food that's best.
Yes, he said, take this silver coin of ours and look to see azka ta'am, which is the purest of food. Which is the purest of food. Not to go get us some food, get us the best food. And so this shows us that we should be eating the food that is best for us. And we should be paying attention to the food, not only to how it's slaughtered, not only to how it's slaughtered, how it's killed, but also how the animal lived. Also how the animal lived and what it ate. Because in the Sunan of At-Tirmidhi, the Prophet mentioned the hadith that the Prophet ﷺ naha anil jallala. He prohibited the eating of the jallala. Now the jallala is the animal that eats filth. It's the animal that eats filth. Now I'm sure that when I was overseas, I used to see sometimes the animals they used to be taken care of, and they would only be given filth to eat. They have this really dingy, they look sick and they look like, they have the skin, they have like their diseases on, they're discolored, and they just look really, really bad because all they eat is filth. The Prophet ﷺ prohibited us from eating the animals that eat filth as their main source of sustenance. So Abdullah ibn Umar, as we find in the Musannaf, Abdullah ibn Umar radiallahu ta'ala anhuma, when he would find a chicken that was sustaining itself just on filth, he would take it and he would lock it up and only feed it good food for 3 days. He would lock it up and only sustain it with good food for 3 days in order so it can release the impurities from his body of that what it used to eat. And then after he felt like it was pure, then he would slaughter it and eat it. And so not only do we have to pay attention to how the animal was slaughtered, we have to pay attention to how the animal lived before it was slaughtered. And because it is very important for us to pay attention to what we eat. It's important for us to pay attention to what we eat. The Prophet ﷺ, if you don't mind, I'm going to go in here in the middle. If everybody can look, I'm going to show you how the Prophet ﷺ used to eat. Hold on a second. He would sit like this. Let me see the mic. He would sit like this. He ate like this, like he was in the process of getting up. This is how he would eat his meal. Like this. Why did the Prophet ﷺ eat like that? Because in order for him not to get comfortable. Because when you sit in a comfortable position, you're going to keep eating, even after you've sustained yourself. And this is how we end up gaining weight. When we start to eat and eat and eat, we see stuff, we eat it, we see some more stuff, we eat some more. Ooh, that looks good, let me eat some. You're not even hungry. Actually, you're actually quite full, but you're still eating. More meat, more rice, more sweets. More meat, more rice, more sweets. And so this habit is something that we should really take a step back and pay attention to and watch our eating. And so the answer to the question, is it permissible to be fat? We cannot give a blanket statement, but we will say that it is mandatory to pay attention to what we eat and how we eat. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows best.
Jazakallah khair wa barakallahu feek. This brother or sister says, I want to marry someone, but my parents don't support me.
We're going to defer every question that is in reference to a specific matter. If you have a specific situation where this is you and your parent does not want you to get married, then I'm going to refer you to one of the imams and to please advise you to set an appointment and to have a private conversation because it's not. I don't want to be unfair to you, and I also don't want to be unfair to your parent because I might answer the question in a way that will be oppressive to you, or it's going to be oppressive to your parent. And so I advise you to set an appointment with one of the imams and to have a discussion about your personal situation specifically. Now in general, your parents have your best interest in mind, and advise anyone who's in this situation in general to sit down and have a conversation with the parents. But if you have a specific situation, then again, please have a discussion with your local imam and set an appointment, and you can discuss your situation privately.
Jazakallah khair, wa barakallah feek. The next one here says, what happens if a kid dies on the 13th? And also, Sheikh, what about the non-Muslim kids that last week?
I don't know of anything special about someone dying on the 13th. I don't know of anything specific about that. I do know that sometimes the disbelievers, they have this superstition, and the Prophet ﷺ, he said, there's no superstition. So he prohibited superstition. And so it's not permissible for us to have superstition. However, I don't know if there's anything specific in the Sunnah about someone dying on the 13th. I have no knowledge of that. However, as a reference to the children of the non-Muslims who died, and the Prophet ﷺ said about them, Allahu a'lamu bima kanu ya'malun. Allah knows best as to what they would have done.
So some of them are curious about the way of being in the next year, right? In the afterlife, are they going to be in paradise or hellfire?
The Messenger ﷺ said, Allahu a'lamu bima kanu ya'malun. Allah knows best as to what they would have done.
Jazakallah khair, Sheikh. The other questions here has a relationship with the salah. Do you want us to?
I'm here for you guys.
Okay. So before we go to the
If I
salah,
have permission from the Shaykh, is it okay? Okay. I'm only here by the permission of the Imam. So when the Imam says for me to stop talking, I'll stop talking, inshallah.
alhamdulillah. There's one here that says, what is the difference between Shia and Sunnah?
Only the youth, okay? The questions.
The questions are only for the youth.
The question is, what is the difference between the Shia and the Shi'i and the Sunni? First of all, there are many differences between the Shia and the Ahl Sunnah. Some of those differences we would say are not differences of disbelief, and some of those differences are differences of disbelief. First of all, we have to know that Shi'ism or Shi'iyya is not all the same thing. It's not all one religion. There are different levels. And so at the very beginning, when someone, during the time of the Salaf, when someone was said he is Shi'i, or he has Tashayyur, then what that meant was that he thought or he believed that Ali was more virtuous than Uthman. He thought that Ali was more virtuous than Uthman. But he believed that Abu Bakr and Umar and Uthman were right to be the Khalifa. So that's that level. Which these were some of the Ahl Sunnah. Some of the people of Ahl Sunnah were described as having Shia tendencies because they believed that Ali was more virtuous than Uthman. Then you have a next level, which were those individuals who believed that Ali was better than Abu Bakr and Umar. But they still believed that Abu Bakr and Umar deserved the Khilafah. Then you had those who believed that no, Ali would deserve the Khilafah. Then you had those who believed that Ali was supposed to be a messenger. Then you had those who believed that Ali was the messenger. And then you had those who believed that Ali was Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And this actually happened during the lifetime of Ali ibn Abi Talib himself. And that he actually burned them alive. He dug a hole for them and lit a fire, and he ordered them to jump in because they came in. They said, "Anta huwa." You're him. He said, I'm who? He said, you're Allah. And so he had them executed. And so the point here is the Shia, they are different methodologies. They're not all the same methodology. And so a lot of times in general today, when we say the word or the term Shia, it's synonymous with the Rafida, which is one of the extremist groups of the Shia. They're the ones, they are disbelievers in general. I'm not talking about people in specific. In general, the Aqeeda of the Rafida is an Aqeeda kufriya. It is a belief it is an Aqeeda that is based on disbelief. One of them being that Jibreel alayhi salam made a mistake and gave the message to the wrong individual, which is why the salah, you see them tapping their legs, their thighs, you say, khana, khana, khana. He betrayed. They're referring to Jibreel, meaning that Allah gave him a trust, and he betrayed that trust and gave the message to the wrong individual. And so that if that was their only mistake, that's sufficient as an act of disbelief or a statement of disbelief in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And so the people of the Sunnah are the people who follow the Sunnah of the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam in its totality. Because even the Rafidah, they believe that the Quran that we have is not the Quran that's correct and authentic. Because they believe that all of the Sahaba disbelieved after the death of the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam, except Ahlul Bayt. So Aisha was a disbeliever. Abdullah ibn Mas'ud, a disbeliever. The rest, Zayd ibn Thabit, disbeliever. Abu Bakr and Umar, disbeliever. They believe all of them were disbelievers, and so they don't accept the Quran and they don't accept the Sunnah. So, well, then where do they get their religion from? We say, well, they have their Imams. They believe their Imams are well endowed with revelation. I don't know if you've ever heard of the Ithna Ashriya, the ones who believe in the 12 Imams. They believe they're infallible, they receive revelation, and so on and so forth. So this is where they get their religion. I know that this is I'm kind of going quickly and I'm mentioning things kind of quickly, and it's not because this is a light issue, but for the sake of time, I hope that this, inshallah ta'ala, will explain. If anybody has any more questions, then inshallah ta'ala we can ask the imams to give a class or a lecture or a series of lectures on the issue, and Allah knows best. The hadith, first of all, is in Sahih Muslim. Right. The hadith is in Sahih Muslim, it's authentic. It is where Tamim al-Dari, radiallahu ta'ala anhu, they lost their way at sea. And they arrived at this island, as you mentioned. And they encountered a beast, right? It was so hairy that you could not tell the tail of it from the head of it. It was so hairy that Tamim said you couldn't tell the head of it from the tail of it. And so, it was called the Jassasa. It introduced itself as the Jassasa. It spoke. And it told them, go to the castle. It was a castle. There was someone in there. And that's where the Dajjal was being chained up at. And so they went in and they had the discussion with the Dajjal. And they came back to Medina. And Tamim accepted Islam because he found what the Dajjal had said was in accordance with what the Prophet ﷺ was teaching. And so, in this hadith, there's no mention of where this island is. There's no mention of which specific island this is. This island could be England, it could be something else, it could be somewhere else. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows best because it was never specified. And if someone wants to say that this island was England or Australia or Madagascar or any other island that there is, they have to bring some type of evidence. And either way, even if we cannot establish exactly where the island is, because we find in the hadith the Prophet ﷺ never asked him, which island is that? Where were you? The Prophet ﷺ never asked that question. And so this shows us that ta'yeen to specify where this actually was may not necessarily be one aspect that is totally important. I'm not going to say that if we found out it's not important, but if we were to never learn, if we were to remain ignorant about the name of this particular island and where exactly it was, it's not going to affect us from entering into Jannah. It's not going to prevent us from entering into Jannah. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows best.
Jazakallah khair. Sheikh, follow up on this. I don't know if you're familiar with the movie on the Netflix, The Messiah.
No.
Now, can you comment on that and give the right clear understanding on Dajjal?
First of all, I actually watched that show because I found some of the Muslims who were excited about the show. And so I watched the show so that I can be ready to take questions about the show. I found that the show is a little bit, is kind of confusing at times, trying to figure out what is the direction that they're trying to go with. At the end of the day, the Dajjal, first of all, is not this individual in the show. Because the Prophet ﷺ, he said, Inna Dajjal a'wa, wa laysa rabbukum bi'a'wa. He said, indeed the Dajjal is one-eyed. And the Dajjal, your Lord is not one-eyed. And so the Dajjal has one eye. And then some of the hadith mention that it's one eye where the other eye is puffed out and it's purple. There was an eye there. It was as if there was an eye there, but it was puffed and purple. And, excuse me? No, he has one eye. He has one eye. And so the Dajjal has one eye. And so this show, that's one of the first things that I noticed that was incorrect about this show, is that the Dajjal is one eye. And one of the things that we have to stay clear of is learning our religion from Hollywood. We can never learn our religion from Hollywood. Some years ago, there was a movie called Nuh, or it was called Noah. When I was growing up here in America, they had a movie about Moses. They made several movies about Isa alayhi salam. We cannot learn our religion from Hollywood. We cannot learn our religion from those who disbelieve in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And so, any movie, any show, first of all, this is not me giving a stamp of approval to watch Netflix. Okay, I'm not saying it's permissible for people to watch Netflix. But I am saying that if those of us who do watch TV, and I'm not saying it's permissible, but those of us who are watching TV, then it is not okay to take our religion from the television. We have to take our religion from the Kitab and the Sunnah. We take our religion from the Kitab and the Sunnah.
Right? So the program is that what the Imam inshallah let us know more. But the program is that after the Salah, after the Maghrib, we have enough food for everyone, inshallah. And right after that, we don't waste no time, inshallah. We come to the second lecture and Q&A. Then we pray, inshallah. Then we get ready for the next workshop, the last one, which is going to be on interval tomorrow, inshallah.
الرحمن علم القرآن خلق الإنسان علمه البيان الشمس والقمر بحسبان والنجم والشجر يسجدان والسماء رفعها ووضع الميزان ألا تطغوا في الميزان وأقيموا الوزن بالقسط ولا تخسروا الميزان والأرض وضعها للأنام فيها فاكهة والنخل ذات الأكمام والحب ذو العصف والريحان فبأي آلاء ربكما تكذبان بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم يا أيها الذين آمنوا أوفوا بالعقود أحلت لكم بهيمة الأنعام إلا ما يتلى عليكم غير محل الصيد وأنتم حرم إن الله يحكم ما يريد يا أيها الذين آمنوا لا تحلوا شعائر الله ولا الشهر الحرام ولا الهدي ولا القلائد ولا آمين البيت الحرام يبتغون فضلا من ربهم ورضوانا وإذا حللتم فاصطادوا ولا يجرمنكم شنآن قوم أن صدوكم عن المسجد الحرام أن تعتدوا وتعاونوا على البر والتقوى ولا تعاونوا على الإثم والعدوان واتقوا الله إن الله شديد العقاب حرمت عليكم الميتة والدم ولحم الخنزير وما أهل لغير الله به والمنخنقة والمنقوذة والمتردية والنطيحة وما أكل السبع إلا ما ذكيتم وما ذبح على النسب وأن تستقسموا بالأزلام ذلكم فسق اليوم يئس الذين كفروا من دينكم فلا تخشوهم واخشون اليوم أكملت لكم دينكم وأتممت عليكم نعمتي ورضيت لكم الإسلام دينا فمن اضطر في مخمصة غير متجانف لإثم فإن الله غفور رحيم صدق الله العظيم.
MashaAllah, Jazakumullah khairan. So as we have, inshallah, we're going to start our second session with our Imam.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله وحده والصلاة والسلام على من لا نبي بعده أما بعد. In our last last lecture, we discussed the issue, what does it mean, al-imanu billahi wahda. We talked about the hadith where the Prophet ﷺ answered the question as what does it mean to believe or have faith in Allah alone. And we saw that the Prophet ﷺ in his answer, it required some action. It requires some work from the salat and the siyam and the zakat. So it requires some action. And so in this class, what we would like to talk about is how does that implementation or the implementation of Iman, how is that actualized? Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala calls us to worship Him. When He says, وَمَا خَلَقْتُ الْجِنَّ وَالْإِنسَ إِلَّا لِيَعْبُدُونَ, I have not created the jinn or the mankind except to worship me. And Allah Ta'ala, He says, وَلَقَدْ بَعَثْنَا فِي كُلِّ أُمَّةٍ رَسُولًا أَنْ يَعْبُدُوا اللَّهَ وَاجْتَنِبُوا الطَّاغُوتَ. And indeed we sent to every nation a messenger proclaiming worship Allah and avoid the false deities. And Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala, He says, إِنَّا أَنزَلْنَا إِلَيْكَ الْكِتَابَ بِالْحَقِّ فَاعْبُدِ اللَّهَ مُخْلِصًا لَهُ الدِّينَ. Indeed we have revealed to you the book in truth, so worship Allah, making the religion sincere for Him. And there are many, many verses where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala commands us to worship Him and to put forward works. So how does that get actualized? We say that there are this gets actualized on 3 different levels. There are 3 different levels that each and every one of us is going to fall into. let us say 3 different categories. Each one of us are going to fall into one of these 3 categories. And as we listen to these categories, what I would like for every single one of us, I want us to contemplate on which category would I place myself in. So as we discussed the category and its definition, I want each person to ask himself, is this me? And so these 3 levels were mentioned by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the Quran when He says, ثم أورثنا الكتاب الذين اصطفينا من عبادنا فمنهم ظالم لنفسه ومنهم مقتصد ومنهم سابق بالخيرات بإذن الله ذلك هو الفضل الكبير جنات عدن يدخلونها يحلون فيها من أساور من ذهب ولؤلؤا ولباسهم فيها حرير. Allah Ta'ala, He says, and then we caused to inherit the book those of our slaves that we chosen. From them is the one who is oppressive to himself. From them is the one who is moderate. And then from them is the one who is preceding with good deeds, or is foremost in doing good deeds by the permission of Allah. That is the tremendous virtue. Gardens of bliss that they will enter, and they will be adorned therein with bracelets of gold and pearls, and their clothing therein will be silk. So here Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He says, then we cause to inherit the book from our slaves, those who we have chosen, meaning the Muslims. So those who have Iman, they're going to break down into 3 different categories. So Allah says the first category, فَمِنْهُمْ ظَالِمٌ لِنَفْسِهِ. Then from them is the one who is oppressive to himself. Now Al-Imam Ibn Kathir, rahimahullah ta'ala, he said in his definition of the one who is oppressive to himself, he said, هو المفرط في فعل الواجبات المرتكب لبعض المحرمات. He said that the one who is oppressive to himself, that Ibn Kathir said in his tafsir of the one who is oppressive to himself, he is the one who does not perform all of the obligations, and he falls into some of that which is haram. So the one who is ظالم لنفسه, the one who is oppressive to himself, he is the one who does not fulfill all of his obligations, and he falls into some of that which has been prohibited. And so this is the one who is ظالم لنفسه. So I want us again just contemplate. We heard the term ظالم لنفسه, oppressive to himself. Now we've heard the definition. Now ask yourself, not out loud, but internally, is this me? Am I from this category, the one who is oppressive to himself? Now, Allah mentioned that all 3 of these categories, Jannatu Adli yadkhulunaha, that their gardens, meaning Jannah, they will enter it. But how is it that the one who is ظالم لنفسه, we understand his definition, the one who is oppressive to himself, how is it that he will enter into Jannah? The answer to that is one of 2 ways. Either A, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will forgive him because Allah is Ghafur Rahim. Or B, he's going to have to be purified in the hellfire first before he can enter into Jannah. Now last night in Masjid al-Jan, someone had asked me and said, what about someone who said, what if I just sin and I'll do the time? I'll spend a week in the hellfire, no problem. Me and my boys, we're just going to hang out together. We say, in answer to that, first and foremost, who would want to spend just an hour in the hellfire, a moment? Who would want to do that? Then, as we mentioned last night, who told you that you were only going to spend a week in the hellfire? Who told you that it was only going to be a month? Who said that it was only going to be a year or 20 years? Who said it was going to only be 20,000 years or 200,000 years? Because that's not forever. The kuffar will dwell forever in the hellfire without ever getting out. But everyone who dies with iman will eventually get out. Who said that that eventually is not 200,000 years? 250,000 years. Who told you that? Do you have an ahd from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Did Allah give you a covenant that said, sin as you please, you're only going to spend X amount of days in the hellfire? This is what the kuffar, the Jews, this is what they said. Ayyaman ma'dudat. That's what they said. They said that we're only going to spend a number of days in the hellfire. So are we going to be like those who lie on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and say, I'm going to do the crime because I can just do the time? We say no. That the one who is zalimun li nafsihi, yes, it's possible that some people will be forgiven, ibtida'an, meaning they will meet Allah on the Day of Judgment, and out of Allah's mercy, and out of His expansive forgiveness, He'll just say, I forgive you, enter into Jannah. But how do you know, and how do I know, that I'm going to be from that group? So the zalimun li nafsihi, the one who is oppressive to himself, as Ibn Kathir mentions, he said he is the one who does not perform all of his wajibat. He does his wajib, which is obligatory. However, some of the wajibat he falls short in. And the muharram, that which is haram, some of it, he'll perform it. That's the zalimun li nafsihi. فَمِنْهُمْ ظَالِمٌ لِنَفْسِهِ. From amongst them are those who are oppressive to themselves. وَمِنْهُمْ مُقْتَصِدٌ. And from them is the one who is moderate. From them is the one who is moderate. And Ibn Kathir rahimahullah ta'ala, he said in his tafsir and his explanation of the muqtasid, the moderate, هو الذي يفعل الواجبات ويترك المحرمات وقد يترك بعض المستحبات وقد يفعل بعض المكروهات. He said that the muqtasid, the moderate one, is the one who he performs all of the wajibat. Every obligation he performs it. And he stays away from everything that is haram. However, some of the recommended acts he doesn't do, and some of the disliked acts he'll do. So he does all of what? All of the obligations. And he stays away from what? All of that which is haram. Every obligation he performs it. Every haram stays away from it. However, when it comes to the recommended actions, he does some, he doesn't do others. When it comes to the disliked actions, he'll do some, and he doesn't do others. This is the muqtasid. This is the one who is moderate. Again, I want us to all ask ourselves, do we think about ourselves that we've even reached to the level of being from the muqtasideen, from the moderate ones? Or do we see ourselves a little bit closer to, oppressive to ourselves? Again, I'm not asking anyone to raise their hand. I just want us to ask ourselves internally. Do we feel like we're closer to the oppressive ones to ourselves? Or do we feel like we are moderate? Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَمِنْهُمْ سَابِقٌ بِالْخَيْرَاتِ بِإِذْنِ اللَّهِ. And then from them are the ones who are foremost in good deeds by Allah's permission. And this shows us that to be foremost in good deeds has to be by the assistance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. As Allah says, وَمِنْهُمْ سَابِقٌ بِالْخَيْرَاتِ بِإِذْنِ اللَّهِ. And from them are those who are foremost in good deeds by Allah's permission. Now Ibn Kathir rahimahullah, he said in his explanation of the sabiq bil khairat, the one who is foremost in doing good deeds, he is the one who يفعل الواجبات والمستحبات ويترك المحرمات والمكروهات وبعض المباحات. Ibn Kathir rahimahullah, he said that the one who is foremost in deeds is the one who performs all of the obligations and all of that which is recommended, and he leaves off all that which is haram and all that which is disliked, and he leaves off some of that which is permissible. He leaves off all the muharram, all of what is disliked, and some of that which is permissible he won't do out of fear of falling into that which is disliked or falling into that which is haram. So these are the three categories. When it comes to our iman and actualization of our iman, then each and every one of us is going to fall into one of these three categories. Either A, we are oppressive to ourselves. And young people, I want you to know, some of the young people, they think, well, because I'm not 18 yet, then I'm not held accountable and I'm not responsible. Well, I'm sorry, I have some news for you. That a lot of you, I'm not going to say all of you, but a lot of you, I'm looking around and I can tell that you have an angel on your right and your left writing down your deeds already. So from you are those who is oppressive to himself. From you is those who are moderate. From you are those who are foremost in doing good deeds. Now I'll tell you, if you're not praying Salat al-Fajr on time, then you're oppressive to yourself. If you talk back to your parents, you're oppressive to yourself. Last night someone asked me about the one who goes, their parents tell them to do something. And Allah said, وَلَا تَقُلْ لَهُمَا أُفٍّ. Meaning you don't say, when your mom or your dad says, go clean your room, and you say, right? That's being disobedient to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and it makes it oppressive to yourself. As I was saying, that each one of us is going to fall into one of these categories. And so I want everybody to ask himself, and want all the ladies to ask, you ask yourselves as well, which one of these categories will I fall into? Because anything other than these three categories is kufr and shirk. Everything other than one of these three categories is kufr and shirk. So I hope that every one of us is from one of these categories. But we have to ask ourselves, where do I fall as it relates to these categories? And our levels in Jannah, Allah says, Jannatu adni yadkhulunaha, the gardens of bliss that they will enter. Our station in Jannah is going to be based upon which category we fell into. How high our level is in Jannah is going to be based on which category we fell into. And I'm going to mention this hadith, inshallah ta'ala, as the Imam said, it's time for us to make salah. So I'm going to mention this hadith and we'll end in bi'idhnillahi ta'ala. This hadith is in the Sahihain, is found in both in Sahih al-Bukhari as well as in the Sahih of Imam Muslim. So on the authority of Ubadah ibn Samit radiyallahu ta'ala anhu, who said that the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, he said, Man shahida an la ilaha illallah wa anna Muhammad, wa man shahida an la ilaha illallah wahdahu la sharika lah, wa anna Muhammadan abduhu wa rasulullah, wa anna Isa abdullah wa rasuluh, wa kalimatuhu alqaha ila Maryam wa ruhun min, wa anna al-jannata haqq, wa anna al-nara haqq, أدخله الله الجنة على ما كان من العمل. Ubadah ibn Samit radiyallahu ta'ala anhu, he said that the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, he said, whoever testifies that there's no deity worthy of worship besides him, and he is alone and has no partners, and he testifies that Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam is his slave and his messenger. And that Isa alayhi salam is his slave and his messenger. And his word that he has bestowed upon Maryam, and a spirit from him. And he testifies that Jannah is true, and that the hellfire is true. Allah will place him in Jannah based upon what he did of his actions. أدخله الله الجنة على ما كان من العمل. Allah will place him in Jannah based upon, meaning he will rank him in Jannah based upon his deeds. He'll rank him in Jannah based upon his deeds. So for those who have no deeds, then where's your place in Jannah? No deeds, no Jannah. Because it requires action. That's what we talked about earlier in our Iman, and in reference to our Iman. What is Iman? It requires action. Because without action, there's no proof that you believed. As we mentioned yesterday, that each and every one of us will be tested. And so in that test, in order to pass the test, we have to perform some type of deed, some type of action, that without it, is not going to solidify and verify our Iman. Which is why Al-Hasan al-Basri, rahimahullah, one of the Imams of the Tabi'een, he said, لَيْسَ الْإِيمَانُ بِالتَّحَلِّ وَلَا بِالتَّمَنِّ وَلَكِنَّ الْإِيمَانِ مَا وَقَرَ فِي الْقَلْبِ وَصَدَّقَهُ الْعَمَلِ. He said that, and Imam Al-Hasan al-Basri, rahimahullah, he said that Iman, faith, is not with wishful thinking. He said faith is not through wishful thinking, but Iman is what takes place in the heart, and the actions verify it. Iman is what takes place in your heart, and your actions verify it. And so, the piece of advice to myself and to all of us is I want us to contemplate this verse where Allah says, He breaks down the people into these three categories. I want us to contemplate about where we find ourselves in these three categories. And I want us to ask ourselves, how many deeds have we put forward for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? And is our life, if we met Allah right now, the deeds that we've put forward to this point, are they sufficient? Will they save us? Do we deserve? And I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to help us and guide us. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make us all from the people of Jannah. May Allah accept from us our good deeds and our righteous actions. May He overlook our faults and forgive us of our mistakes.
Inshallah, we're going to start inshallah the prayer, inshallah.
Before I begin answering this question, I want to make a suggestion to the parents. Because one of the things that I noticed over the last 2 days is I've been getting a lot of questions from the youth in reference to marriage. And so I would like to make a suggestion, and it's only a suggestion. I'm not saying that this is revelation. I'm not even saying that it's recommended. It's just a suggestion. If you will accept it from me, then okay, alhamdulillah. If you think that it's not a good idea, then, you can toss it out the window. But my suggestion is, when I was in Houston, I was working with the youth a lot. And I helped raise a young man and a young lady. And when they graduated high school, their father, the father of the boy and the father of the girl, they got together and decided, we're going to get them married. We're going to marry them right after high school. And we're going to send them to college together. And the father of the girl and the father of the young man, the father of the young lady and the father of the young man, they split the costs. They made the boy work part-time while he went to school. And then whatever was left, they split the costs 50-50. So that they can be husband and wife while they were going to school. And now, alhamdulillah, they have 2 babies. They both have good jobs. They've been married for quite some time, about 5 or 6 years now. They've been married and they were quite successful. And if for those of you parents, I know that sometimes we want to say, let's wait when our child ready to graduate from school and so on and so forth. But I think that this is a good idea for those who have the ability to do so. So that if your child graduates from high school and you know that they're on the edge of desiring marriage, then it'll be a good idea for him and her to send them to marry them and to send them to college together as husband and wife, and then they get assistance while they're in college from both families. That way, they will be successful. And again, this is just my suggestion versus leaving our children 18, 19, 20, 21 years old, 22 years old in college. You know, we're getting questions saying, can I marry a disbeliever? You know, I'm in love with a disbeliever. I'm pregnant by a disbeliever. And we don't want these types of things for our children. So any means that we have that will help our children to be successful, then we should sacrifice for that purpose. And as again, I said, this is only a suggestion, and I'm not claiming this to be from the Sunnah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So the question is, if one goes to Jumu'ah late for some reason, but misses a rak'ah, do you just continue with the imam and then complete the missing rak'ah, or do you complete the prayer as dhuhr? There's a difference of an opinion as it relates to when a person catches a rak'ah. The person catches the rak'ah. The majority of the ulama of the opinion that if you catch the imam in ruku', then you have caught the rak'ah. If you catch the imam in ruku', you have caught the rak'ah. In turn, if this is what your opinion is, then if you catch the imam by the ruku', meaning if you go into ruku' and are stationary in ruku' before the imam starts to lift up out of ruku' of the second rak'ah, then you have caught the second rak'ah of the Jumu'ah, and then you would complete the first rak'ah after the imam is salams, and you're finished. Otherwise, you would have to pray. Dhuhr. Meaning, if you come to the masjid and you do not catch the imam in ruku', and the imam comes out of ruku', you catch him in the second qiyam, then you have missed the jama'ah, then you would have to complete your salat as salat al-dhuhr. However, I feel as though the evidence of the kitab and the sunnah are strongest with those who say that in order to catch the rak'ah, you have to catch the imam while he is still standing in the first standing. And you have to recite Surah Al-Fatiha before he goes into the ruku'. This was the position of Abu Hurairah radiyallahu ta'ala anhu, and the position of Imam al-Bukhari rahimahullah ta'ala, and others from the ulama. It's a very long discussion, and I don't want to take up all of our time to discuss this matter. And so basically, if you hold the position that catching the imam in ruku' is catching the rak'ah itself, then that would mean that you would have to, in order to pray your salat as Jumu'ah, you would have to make it to the salat by the time the imam is in ruku'. So you have to be stationary in ruku' before the imam starts to rise up from ruku'. If you've done so, according to this position, then you would have caught the rak'ah, and then in turn you would have caught the Jumu'ah. If you come to the masjid and the imam has already came out of the ruku', the second rak'ah, then you pray with the imam until he finishes, and then you complete your salat as salat al-dhuhr. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows best.
So there is a survey that is going around, inshallah. Make sure you answer this. So this is going to help us, inshallah, make it better, inshallah. Okay? Fill it out, inshallah, and give it to those who are collecting it.
Yeah, man.
You have a question, right?
Is being a radical Muslim haram?
You don't laugh, you don't laugh.
The question is being a radical Muslim haram? I believe that when you're asking about being radical, you are referring to what we would, I guess we would classify as right-wing political Muslims. Those who have political agendas, those who are extreme in their views, which cause them to commit acts of violence and to perpetrate acts of terror against the innocent, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has not given any permission to do. If this is what you're asking about, then we say yes, it is impermissible, meaning it is haram to be upon this type of religion. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He says, Ya ahl al-kitab la taghlu fi dinikum. O people of the book, do not don't be extreme in your religion. So it's not permissible to be extreme in anything. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he said, that those who are extreme are destroyed. Those who are extreme are destroyed. And these individuals who are radical in their understanding of Islam, the problem is that they have not taken their understanding of Islam from the Sahaba of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. They have understood the verses of the Quran outside of the meaning that they were intended. And we know this because when we look at the tafsir of Ibn Abbas, the tafsir of Ibn Mas'ud, the tafsir of Ali ibn Abi Talib, or the tafsir of the tabi'een like Mujahid or Qatada or Sa'id ibn Jubair, we find that they are giving tafsir of these verses of the Quran differently than how these radical individuals are explaining these verses of the Quran. And so Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He says in the Quran, فَإِنْ آمَنُوا بِمِثْلِ مَا آمَنْتُمْ بِهِ فَقَدْ اهْتَدَوْا. And if they believe as you believe, then they are guided. Who are the you when this verse was revealed? The Sahaba of the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Allah said, and if they believe as you believe, meaning those non-Muslims, those who are astray, if they believe as you believe, meaning the Sahaba, then they'll be guided. So we only find guidance in the Quran and the Sunnah on how the companions of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam understood these verses of the Quran and the Sunnah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And we'll find that the Messenger of Allah alayhi salatu wasalam, before I say that, let me turn this question. Let me ask the question. Who knows what caused the death of the Messenger alayhi salatu wasalam? Yes.
He was asked if he wanted to remain on the earth or to meet his
No. That's true, yes. But what is it that actually caused the sickness? When he was sick, what caused the sickness? He was poisoned. He was poisoned by the Muslims?
No, by the Jews.
He was poisoned by the Yahud. Which means that the Prophet ﷺ didn't kill every Jew on sight. Right? That necessitates that every Jew that the Prophet saw, ﷺ, he didn't just go with a sword and kill them. Right? So when these individuals come and they say, Allah says, فَقْتُلُوهُمْ حَيْثُ وَجَدْتُمُوهُمْ, and kill them wherever you find them, meaning that we go and just kill the kuffar and say, whoa, slow down. First let's read the verse before it and the verse after. Then let's take a look at the tafsir. And let's take a look at the actions of the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam. Did we realize that there were 3 tribes of Jews that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam included in the constitution of Medina? Does anybody know what these tribes were? Beni who? Benu Qaynuqa, Benu Qurayza, and Benu Nadir. Benu Nadir, Benu Qaynuqa, and Benu Qurayza. There were 3 tribes of Jews that the Prophet ﷺ included in the constitution. And so this shows us, and I'm just trying to, my point is that this understanding that people are perpetrating, that the Muslims believe that every time we see a non-Muslim that we're supposed to go kill them, and say this understanding is ludicrous. It is furthest from the truth, because this was not the methodology of our Prophet ﷺ. And so this radicalization or this understanding that we have to kill, or it's all political. It's all based on politics. And I don't, and from what I've seen, what's your name? Ibrahim. What I've seen from those individuals who claim that this is their methodology, they're not even practicing what they say that they believe in. It's all politics, it's all a game, and it's all twisted. And so our obligation is to follow the middle course. We're not too soft when we leave our religion and we don't stand up for what we believe in. And then we're not too far to the right and so hard that we've gone extreme and we started being oppressive to the people who are around us. And so we followed the middle course, which was the methodology of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam and his companions Abu Bakr and Umar and Uthman and Ali and all the rest of the companions radiallahu ta'ala ajma'in. Don't busy yourself with rumors, but busy yourself with knowledge and the people of knowledge. Who are the people of knowledge? The people of knowledge are the people who tell you Allah said, the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam has said. Busy yourself with those people. If you find someone that says Allah said, the Messenger said sallallahu alaihi wasallam, then these are the people of knowledge. And these are the people that you listen to. These are the lessons that you attend. These are the halaqat that you gather in. These are the friends that you take for yourself. And so, if this individual that you're asking about is someone that says, Allah Ta'ala says in ayah such and such, the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam has said in such and such a hadith, then we're going to attend those lessons and we're going to learn the knowledge that the individual possesses. If this, whatever person, is someone who just says, I think, I heard, I don't know, but I'm going to tell you what my logic says, then these are people that we don't want to take from, and Allah Subhanahu Wa Ta'ala knows this.
So we have a question here, and the question goes, what are some ways I can increase my iman?
There are many ways that a person increases his iman. Allah Azza wa Jal mentions, for example, in the Quran, وَعَلَى اللَّهِ فَتَوَكَّلُوا إِن كُنتُم مُؤْمِنِينَ. And in Allah alone place your trust if you are believers. And so Allah Subhanahu Wa Ta'ala has connected your faith directly with your level of trust in Allah. And so that means that the more that you trust in Allah Azza wa Jal, and you turn your affairs over to Allah, and believe that Allah is in control, and this is going to increase your iman. Every good deed that you put forward increases your faith. Every good deed. So every time you make wudu, every time you make wudu, your iman increases. Every time you make salah, your iman increases. Every letter that you recite from the book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, your iman increases. My advice for the ones who are struggling with their iman, I advise you to choose good friends. In the Sahih of Imam Bukhari, he brings the hadith of the man who killed 99 men. And he went to a person that he thought was knowledgeable, and he asked him, can I make tawbah? And the man, the knowledgeable person told him, no, you can't make tawbah. So he killed him. So he killed 100 people. So he went and asked for another knowledgeable person. So they pointed him to someone else. And he said, I killed 100 men. Can I make tawbah? And he said, yes. But you have to go to such and such a town. In that town there are righteous people who worship Allah. So go there and worship Allah with them. And so I advise everyone who's struggling with their faith to change their environment. If you're hanging out with X, Y, and Z, or Ahmed, Abdul Kareem, and Abdul Rahman, and you're struggling with your iman because of their companionship, change your companions. Find new friends. Go and hang out in different places. Read different books. Find books that will increase your iman. Stories of the prophets. Stories of the righteous people who came before you. Sit with your elders and listen to their stories. Because I'm telling you, I'm looking here at the white beards, mashallah, tabarakallah, and I guarantee you there's wisdom and stories for days of the struggles and the testimonies of different incidents that will increase you in iman. And so, read the Quran. Read the Quran and ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to assist you. Ask Allah Azza wa Jalla to assist you with your issues of Iman and to increase your Iman, and you'll find that Allah Azza wa Jalla will send you down the path that you wish to go down. If you want to go down a path of righteousness and a path of faith, Allah Azza wa Jalla will send you down that path. I want to mention a hadith before we move on. This is the Messenger alayhi salatu wasalam. He said, لِكُلِّ عَمَلٍ شِرَّةٍ. Every action will have a high point. Every action will have a high point. وَلِكُلِّ شَرَّةٍ فَتْرَةٍ. And every high point is going to have a period of laziness. Khubul. Every high point is going to have a period of laziness. So the Prophet says, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, فَمَنْ كَانَتْ فَتْرَتُهُ إِلَى سُنَّتِي فَقَدْ نَجَحَ وَمَنْ كَانَتْ فَتْرَتُهُ إِلَى غَيْرِ ذَلِكَ فَقَدْ هَلَكَ. Whosever period of laziness is in agreement with my sunnah, then he will be successful. But whoever's period of laziness is in agreement with other than that, then he'll be destroyed. And what this means is that every once in a while, all of us are going to have a peak in our Iman. We're going to feel strength in our Iman. Our Iman is going to be high. And then we're going to have a period of time where we're not feeling so spiritual, we're not feeling so energetic. That time period, if you're at least in agreement with the Sunnah, meaning you're doing that which is mandatory, you're doing the bare minimum, at least, then you'll be successful. However, if you're doing not the bare minimum, and you're doing other than the Sunnah, then you're going to be destroyed. And so this shows us the importance of performing that which is recommended. Why? Because if your highest point in your Iman is the bare minimum, if you're at your apex, if you're at the highest level of Iman is bare minimum, you're doing only the wajib, what happens when you reach your lazy point? Right? Meaning if you're at your highest level of faith, the last 10 days of Ramadan, the first 10 days of the Hijjah, when you're at your highest point of faith, you're only just praying 5 times a day. That you're barely praying 5 times a day. That's your highest level of faith. My question is going to be, what happens when you come off of that high point and you become lazy? You're definitely going to be lower than the bare minimum. So it's important for all of us to strive to make our regular practice what's wajib and that which is recommended. So that at least if we get lazy one day, right, at least we're still practicing the bare minimum, and then until we reach a period of strength in our spirituality, we can go back up. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala help us.
We have a question here. It says that, is it okay for a non-Muslim to become a disbeliever? The question is a person who is born upon Islam, is it permissible for them to become a non-believer? First and foremost, we want to say that every single child born in the world is born upon Islam. So that means the children of India, whose parents are Hindus, who worship animals and trees and nature, their children are born upon Islam. If it means those who are born in Asia, who believe in philosophies and different types of mysticism, their children is born upon Islam, upon the natural disposition, meaning believing that there is one God. The Prophet ﷺ, he said, كُلُّ مَوْلُودٍ يُولَدُ عَلَى فِطْرَةٍ. Every child that is born upon the fitrah. And what is the fitrah? It means that they are born in a state in which is in line with the Tawheed of Islam. It is very easy for our children to understand there's one God. It's very easy for them. But it is difficult to tell them God is three in one. It is difficult for them to see animals and for you to teach them these animals are our gods, or these animals are our ancestors. So every child is born upon Islam, but there's only their parents that make them non-Muslim, that make them Jew and Christian and fire worshiper and what have you. So is it permissible for someone who is born upon Islam to leave Islam? No, it is not permissible at all. Why? Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَمَا خَلَقَتُ الْجِنَّ وَالْإِنسَ إِلَّا لِيَعْبُدُونَ. Allah tells us what the purpose of our creation is. And the purpose of our creation, the reason why Allah made us is to worship Him. So anyone who chooses not to worship Allah will be punished by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So the answer, it is not permissible for you who are born upon Islam and who alhamdulillah is raised in a home upon Islam for you to leave Islam for any other religion. It is not permissible for you at all, and it will never be permissible. Wallahu a'lam.
Young people, let me tell you something. Everybody who's young, who's youth here, listen up, please. I was born as a non-Muslim, and I was raised as a non-Muslim. Not only was I raised as a non-Muslim, I was raised without direction. My father never taught me religion at all. Not Christianity, not Judaism, not Buddhism, not any Islam. I was left to myself. And I praise Allah. I thank Allah that I found Islam. I don't know what I would be doing right now if I hadn't found Islam. Because I used to run the streets. Those of you who know Atlantic City, I was part of the Abdullahs, what we call the Junior Abdullahs, if you know what that is. And I had my teachers in high school tell me, "You're never going to graduate high school." I was homeless. I was bad. I used to cause problems. People kicked me out of the house. Can't be here. I had no direction. I was angry. I didn't know why. It was because I had no religion. I had no guidance, no anything. And now I can talk about it and I understand. I was angry because it was a void that Allah Azza wa Jalla was empty in my heart. And I didn't have Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And I walked around angry. And I would snap. And I was angry all the time. All the time, and I was miserable. And I say miserable, I was miserable because I was angry. And you don't know how happy I was when I found Islam. Because I found a place. I found purpose. When I was 14 years old, I tried to commit suicide. That's how lost I was. My wife, who's my wife now, alhamdulillah, she was there. And I always tell her, if she was here in New York with me, I would tell her, tell my story. Because I want people to know, and I'm not embarrassed of this, because I want you kids to know the ni'mah that you live in. You're blessed. Yes, you may be angry because Baba is a little bit, overprotective, makes you pray. Yes, you may be angry because Mama makes you wear a funny hijab. I don't like the way it looks. I can't do what I want. I can't be with who I want. You're blessed. Allah favored me because He chose me to find Islam. But the route that I was brought up on, that what I was raised on, is to not have religion altogether. My mother didn't feed me. I fed myself. My father didn't give me money. I had to go find money on my own. I swear by Allah, and I'm not exaggerating. I'm in the masjid next to the minbar with the mushaf right beside me. I swear by Allah, when I was in 9th grade, I used to stand at the cash register in the lunchroom. When kids would come out from their paying for their lunch, they give $2 and they get some change. I'd ask them, can I have some change? You need that dime? You need that 15 cents? You need that 25 cents? Can I have that? And I would get $1 until I got $1.55, and then I would stand in line and I would buy my lunch. I was angry because I was always embarrassed. My clothes never fit. My shoes were always old. I wore the same clothes to school every day. And in the summer, after I finished 9th grade, I woke up one day and said, you know what? I need to find religion. I need to change my religion. This is what I need. I just thought this is what I needed. And then I said, okay, I'll try Islam. Because we in Atlantic City, we have the Muslims who sell oils and incense on the avenue. And so I'll try Islam, because Christianity ain't working. So I woke up, took a shower, got on the bus, went downtown, walked around Atlantic City looking for a masjid, couldn't find it. Now I remember it was Jumu'ah, because I said, you know what, forget all this. I'm just going to go to my aunt's house, I'm going to chill out, take a nap, and then I'm going to go back home. And I'm walking down the street, and I walked by the Islamic Center. I saw the sign, Islamic Center of Atlantic City. And the Muslims were coming out of the masjid for Jumu'ah. And I said, okay, you know what, I'll try it. I'll go in here and see what happens. I was 14. I said, if it's wrong, I'll just go do something else. So I walked in, the first person I saw, I said, listen, tell me about Islam. So he put me in a little room, he made me take my shoes off, and he talked to me for like 30 minutes. And I had no idea what he was talking about. Malaika, and Rusul, Kutub. He was using these terms. I'm 14, I don't speak Arabic, I don't know what you're talking about, man. Yeah. So after 30 minutes, he said, you want to be Muslim? I said, yes. So he said, raise your finger. I raised my finger. He said, repeat after me. Laqani shahada. He gave me my shahada, I became Muslim. Alhamdulillah, I'm a Muslim ever since. Allah blessed me to go to Medina and study His religion. And now I'm here so I can tell my story so that you, 11-year-old, 12-year-old, 13, 16, 17, 18-year-old, you can understand the blessing that you live in. That you have parents who love you, who want to see good for you. They want you to succeed. Yes, they're a little bit overbearing at times. It's but because they're afraid. They're afraid to lose you. They're afraid to lose you to the streets. They're afraid of losing you to the bottom. They're afraid of losing you to crack. They're afraid of losing you to kufr. They're afraid. They only came here for reasons. And they're afraid of losing their religion and their offspring. So sometimes they may be a little bit overprotective. But you gotta understand that they love you. You gotta understand that they care about you. And this religion, this Islam, I can tell you, I've been on the other side. I know it's on the other side. Misery is on the other side. Hardship is on the other side. Loneliness is on the other side. This deen is the truth. The Quran is the truth. The Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he came with the perfect way of life. And anyone who feels anything different, it's only because they're not practicing the truth. So I'm saying to myself and to all the young people, come on over to practicing the truth. Practice this deen. Allah says, enter into this religion in its entirety. You'll taste the sweetness of Iman. And I'm not just sending you some lip service. I'm telling you because I was on the other side. And I'm only here still because I've tasted the sweetness of Iman. And I've seen what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala can do. So I say, and please forgive me, I got a little emotional. Please, hope, inshallah, I don't mean to be disrespectful to the shuyukh here, and to the imam. But that question hurt me down in my soul. It hurt me just to hear someone say, is it permissible for someone to become a non-Muslim? Wallahi, that's very painful to hear. I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to help all of the Muslims. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bestow His grace and His mercy upon all of us and all of our children. I pray that Allah Azza wa Jalla protects our faith and protects the faith of our children. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala preserve us and preserve our children.
We keep going with the questions. This one says, why Muslims don't date?
The question says, why Muslims don't date? The answer is because they get married.
Okay. We continue inshallah with questions. The next question says, why Muslims are hated so much and what can we do about it?
First of all, the Muslims have been hated ever since. Muslims have been hated ever since because there are people who just don't like the truth. They're jealous of the truth, which doesn't make sense because all they have to do is follow the truth. But the problem is people aren't strong enough to be upon the truth. They're not strong enough internally to say that they believe in Allah on the last day. And so what they do is they hate the people who are strong enough to say that they believe in Allah on the last day. And they're jealous of the strength and the iman of the Muslims. Now, there are those of the Muslims, as we mentioned earlier, who have given the Muslims a bad name, and those individuals have done things that are wrong, which has caused some, given those individuals who already hate the Muslims, given them ammunition. But what can you and I do? We can continue practicing what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has revealed and understanding Islam in its entirety. Practicing Islam in its entirety, which means that we're kind and merciful to the believers. And part of Islam is the practicing of the ayah, "Ud'u ila sabili rabbika bil hikmati wal maw'idati al-hasana." Call to the way of your Lord with wisdom and a good admonition. And so part of us being good Muslims is to call others, the people who we work with, the people who we go to school with, the people who are neighbors, call them to Islam. Invite them to the truth that we have with us. And that, inshallah ta'ala, will allow the people to open their eyes to the beauty of Islam and what Islam has to offer. A lot of times, some of them, we're ignorant of what Allah has revealed. And so that it doesn't allow for us to be able to tell others about what Allah has revealed. So I encourage myself and I encourage all of us to learn what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has revealed so that we can teach it to others and show others the beauty of Islam.
Chef, we're supposed to finish 8 o'clock. So I'm not sure. There's a lot of questions.
By the way, I'm here. The shuyukh say I have to stop, I'll stop. I don't want the people to be mad at me. So don't be mad at me if they're saying we have to turn off the microphones, okay?
I'm still going to put you on the spot, Chef. To what time? Choose. Up to what time is not too boring. I have 2 other papers here, and I have 2 other things.
Let's just take 2 more.
2 more?
Let's be in the middle.
Alright, they only said 2 more, so.
Sheikh will be in inshallah. This question says, what Islam says about being gay and lesbians?
It is not permissible to participate in any type of homosexual activity. Allah Azza wa Jalla has forbade this type of activity. If you go to different portions of the Quran, in many places in the Quran, Allah Azza wa Jalla speaks about the people of Lut. And I believe, inshallah ta'ala, their ending should be a sufficient reminder as to why it is impermissible to partake in these types of activities. It's not permissible for men to be gay, nor is it permissible for women to be lesbians.
Sheikh, what about those who have inclination towards being lesbian or gay?
You know, there are those who claim that this is, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created them this way. They claim that Allah Azza wa Jal have created, I was created this way, I was born this way, this is in my genes. And I'm going to say that that is incorrect, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said about the people of Lut, مَا سَبَقَكُمْ بِهَا أَحَدٌ مِّنَ الْعَالَمِينَ. No one has preceded you in this. So they made this up, and their activities was done based upon their desires, not because they were born that way. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created us and has commanded us with commandments. And so even if a person finds himself inclining to this, may Allah protect us, but if he finds himself with a desire to this, his obligation is to prohibit himself from this type of behavior. وَأَمَّا مَنْ خَافَ مَقَامَ رَبِّهِ وَنَهَى النَّفْسَ عَنِ الْهَوَى فَإِنَّ الْجَنَّةَ هِيَ الْمَأْوَى. And so whoever fears the standing of his Lord and prohibits himself from his desires, for verily Jannah will be his dwelling place. And so fearing the meaning of Allah and prohibiting oneself from desires. So yes, I'm not going to sit here and say that no one here has a desire. Because there are those of us who desire alcohol. There are those of us who desire a zina. There are those of us who desire money. There are those of us who want to get high. There are those of us, and those of us, and those of us. Every one of us has a desire. So maybe one of us has a desire for this. But the obligation of every person is to prohibit himself from partaking in the sin. The Messenger sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, he said, إِنَّ اللَّهَ تَجَاوَزَ عَنْ أُمَّتِي مَا حَدَّثَتْ بِهِ أَنفُسُهُمْ مَا لَمْ تَعْمَلْ بِهِ أَوْ تَتَكَلَّمْ. Allah said, the Prophet said, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, indeed Allah has pardoned my ummah that which they discuss within themselves, meaning what they think about, what goes on in their minds. Allah will forgive them, as long as they don't talk about it or act upon it. As long as they don't talk about it or act upon it. So if an individual has a desire, I'm not going to say that you're going to hell. I'm not saying that. If you have a desire, prohibit yourself from falling into that desire. Tell yourself that Allah prohibited this. And do what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has commanded. This is the way to Jannah, because following our desires, it will lead us to the hellfire. Allah Azza wa Jalla help us.
Can you emphasize the terms like permissible? Some of them are very young. That's why the question of gay and lesbian. Can you emphasize that it's haram, it's forbidden?
It is haram. It is haram. And what I mean by haram, that the one who does it deserves to be punished by Allah in the hellfire. The question is it permissible to be a gay or a lesbian? That's the question. And I'm saying that it's haram. Meaning, the same way that it is haram to commit zina, it is haram to drink alcohol, it is haram to partake in any of these types of homosexual activities. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protect us and protect our children.
Inshallah, this is going to be our last question. Says, how can you maintain father and daughter relationship? The relationship with your father and their daughter.
The question is, how do you maintain a good relationship with your father and with your daughter? How does a father and daughter maintain a good relationship? Okay. How does a father and daughter maintain a good relationship? First and foremost, we know that relationships, it requires two people to be participating in it for it to work, or else there is no relationship. So, the father and the daughter they both need to recognize that they need one another and that they both play a role. And that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has commanded that the family unit, mother, father, sister, brother, grandparents, that they stay together. And there is a reward in staying together and being together. Allah commands us in the Quran, commands children in the Quran, وَوَصَّيْنَا الْإِنسَانَ بِوَالِدَيْهِ إِحْسَانًا. And we have made it a duty and responsibility upon you to be good to your parents. So as a daughter, I would advise her to remember that Allah has commanded for you to treat your father with respect and to strive to have a good relationship with him. This is something that Allah wants. Just as Allah wants you to pray, just as Allah wants you to be pious, just as Allah wants you to have sincerity. This is from among the things that Allah is requiring of you, that you maintain a good relationship with your parents, both of them. As well, on the father's side, I would remind him that our children, they are an amana from Allah. Allah has granted us custody of them. And Allah will hold us accountable. So having a good relationship with our daughters means that we are going to be in their lives. Because if you get out of their lives, and then their life takes a turn for the worse, trust me, on Yawm al-Qiyamah, they will not hesitate to blame you in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Because on that day, every single individual will be an enemy one to another. Even the prophets and messengers will say on that day, Nafsi, Nafsi. When the people are coming to the prophets and messengers, Ibrahim and Adam and Musa, and they're Noah, and they are saying, please speak on our behalf, help us, assist us. The prophets and messengers will say, Nafsi, Nafsi, myself, myself, I have no time for you. Brothers and sisters, fathers will see one another and will turn from one another. Why? Because they know that they have not done right by them and they are fearing being held accountable for that. So definitely in our deen, in several ways, in several ayat, in several ahadith, we are reminded that we must be good to one another and that we must stay close to one another. But in just practical advice, sometimes we just need practical advice and example. I would say that it is very important that our fathers make time for their daughters privately. Yes, we have something called family time. So maybe the family eats dinner together, which is rare, but which is something that we should implement. That dinner is not served until the father comes home, so they can sit together. And yes, they may do activities together, like go grocery shopping, but although that is family time, that's not father-daughter time. I encourage the fathers, take your daughters out. Take them out to eat. Take them out to the park. Spend quality time with them, meaning one-on-one. Even if you have 5 children, you should spend a day with one of your children separate from the rest of them, so that they get that attention. Because you will have no idea, and you will think to yourself, I did everything good. I fed and I clothed them. I remember my father, rahimahullah, he would tell us whenever we would complain, are you hungry? Are you naked? Are you homeless? And that was it. That was what it meant to be a father. But now our children, they are not raised in the manner in which we were raised. Not saying that was bad or good, but they require more attention from us. And so it is going to demand that you make more time for them. So you must spend quality time with your daughters so that they may see an example of what a father is supposed to be, and that they will not marry those who do not share the same qualities. Because it is often said that daughters will choose those who are similar to their father. Let them see good examples in you and not bad examples. And as for our daughters, you must remember that our fathers, they have a lot of responsibility on their shoulders. And that anything that they may say which upsets you is only out of love. And unfortunately, in our community, it is very difficult for us to express our love for our children sometimes. Even for our spouses, our wives, it is very difficult for us. But it is something that we must overcome. It is something that we can only do together. So we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to repair the relationships in all of our house, and to make each and every one of us attempt with sincerity to repair those relationships that have been damaged, or to get closer to one another. أقول قولي هذا وأستغفر الله لي ولكم. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
Yeah, Sheikh, Jazakumullah khairan. We just received one more last question. Do you mind? So this one is urgent. Yeah. You want to hold it or one last one? Okay. Question says, is it haram for a wife to beat their husband? Oh my God.
What I'm going to say is that I'm going to talk to the men. Let me give some advice to the men. Brothers, you should be in your house so well loved by your wife and your children that they would never ever think of harming you in the least. The way that you behave with your wife should be in a way that makes her feel beautiful. She should feel like she's the only beautiful woman in the world. And all it takes is some compliments. The Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he said that the woman, خُلِقَتِ الْمَرْأَةُ مِنَ الضِّلْعِ, that the woman was created from the rib. إِن ذَهَبْتَ تُصْلِحَهَا كَسَرْتَهَا. If you went to straighten her out, you'll break her. فَدَانِهَا تَعِشْ بِهَا. Flatter her, you'll be able to live with her. So flatter her. Listen to her. Sometimes it doesn't take you to say anything, but just to listen. I know you had a long day at work. Some of you work really hard, and some of you are tired when you come home, and your wife, she's been waiting all day just so she can tell you about all these things that you may not think or you may think are trivial. So and so said this, the flowers did this, I did that. Listen to her. And when I mean listen, I mean actively listening. Like, yeah? Oh yeah, they did what? Oh yeah? For real? Be interested in her conversation. Flatter her. So bring her flowers. You say, what? I can't afford flowers. I say, listen, Akhi, listen. In the gas stations, I don't know about New York, but where I'm from, in the gas station, they sell these plastic roses. Right? 99 cents. Right? You come with a plastic rose, and you say, a rose for my rose. Right? And I'm telling you, and you can walk away, and she's going to be happy for a week. She'll brag to her friends, my husband brought me a rose, but your husband bring me. Right? She'll brag. You take that same rose and run her a bath. You put some bubbles. 99-cent bubbles from Walmart. Put them in the water. You take the rose, the plastic rose that would cost 99 cents, and now we're at $2. You rip off the petals. You put the petals on top of the bubbles. Say, this is for you, deserve this. You should be loved. And if you flatter her and you treat her like a woman, then she'll treat you like a man. But if you come in the house like a tyrant, and because you've been out the street at work and somebody was chumping you at the job, so now you want to come home and show off that you're a man. I'm a man. So you come home and you yell and you scream, or some of us, they throw their wives against the doors and push their heads in the pillow. Like one time I had a case where brother, he tied his wife up in the house. And he threatened her with a box cutter. And he thought this made him manly. Say, no, what makes you a man is the fact that you can love your wife with honesty and being proud of it. Because the Prophet ﷺ, he was asked, who do you love the most? He said, Aisha. That was his answer. That's the one I love the most. I love her. He wasn't ashamed to admit it in front of the brothers, in front of other men. He wasn't ashamed. So don't be ashamed. Show your wife love. Care for her. Treat her like a woman, and she'll treat you like a man. And we'll never ever have to deal with the question, is it permissible for me to beat my husband? I'll tell you, some of the brothers, they do deserve to be beat. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala help us and guide us. I think, is that the last one? Inshallah. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala help us.
Thank you. Our program tomorrow will be at the same time at Masjid al-Jannah, 984 Intervale Avenue. 984 Intervale Avenue. Inshallah, we will be there same time. Inshallah, please fill up the surveys. Based on that, we can see what we can come up with much better, inshallah. And also, it's going to be the same time, inshallah. 3 to 8. It's not done yet, guys. It's not done. It's not done. We have our Amir here, we have Sheikh Tafsir, inshallah. They're going to make dua for us, then we end, inshallah.
Assalamu alaikum wa barakatuh. We are here, alhamdulillah, with the Aqeeda and Akhlaq lecture. Aqeeda is a creed, and Akhlaq are the characters of Islam. Lectures, workshops, we started yesterday, on Friday, today Saturday, and tomorrow will be Sunday, inshallah. So we are here with our Sheikh. He came from Florida with Sheikh Hassan. Alhamdulillah, it was so successful. We made him fala and sukat and arrow, right? Alhamdulillah, it was so beautiful today. We have tons of questions, controversial questions, alhamdulillah. So tomorrow we're definitely going to be in Masjid al-Jannah. Today on Saturday, on the 22nd of February, we are here in Masjid Futa on 63rd Avenue. And tomorrow on the 23rd, we're going to be in Masjid al-Jannah at 984 Intervale Avenue, inshallah. Maybe the Sheikh has something to say about this.
Alhamdulillah, we're very excited to be putting on this workshop in Akhlaq and Iman. This 2-day workshop is very important because perfecting our Iman and perfecting our character is an important aspect of the life of the Muslim. So come out and join us for the last day of the program. You're welcome to come, ask questions, hear what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has revealed in His book and what the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam mentioned in his sunnah. I pray that Allah azza wa jal makes it beneficial for all of us.
Thank you so much, Sheikh.